All right, guys, welcome back to Modern Day Debates. We are going to be getting into a fun debate today. As you know, we like to do topics such as science, religion, and politics on the channel. And today we'll have Prophet Daniel has spoken. He's a Muslim author. He's translated the Quran into English. He does debates all the time. And he likes this topic, I guess. And Chris at Speaker's Corner. He's an author, Christian. I guess he's getting into debating as well. He's a YouTube streamer. So, like I said, topic today is the Islamic dilemma real? And did you guys decide who was going first? I think the affirmative would be Daniel, right?
Well, I think the affirmative is me. Yeah.
Oh, is the dilemma real? Yeah, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, Chris. Well, we're going to do 10-minute openings and then 60-minute dialogue, and then we're going to break it into the Q&A. Real quick, chat, how is the audio? Can everybody hear?
Testing, testing.
Yeah, they'll tell me if it's bad.
I think there's a little bit of a delay between this and the chat, so you have to wait a few seconds.
Gomi3341. James is in the back tied up. He's a big guy, but I was able to muscle him down. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and start it. I'm going to get your time started in just a second. You're going to start with the share screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Cool. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Islamic dilemma real? The answer to that, of course, is... Oh, yes. Yes, it is. Very much so. It is a huge problem for Islam, and we're going to see why. It's not a little argument, it is a huge argument. First of all, let's have a look at how social media actually shows people being interested in this argument and wanting to debate it or refute it. We have Godlogic Apologetics. He made a short on the Islamic dilemma that has just under 700,000 views on YouTube alone. We have David Wood's old channel, used to be called Axe Apologetics, Axe 17 Apologetics, now it's a different name, but he made his video about it with a nice little animation, has almost 900,000 views, and that was 11 years ago. And this guy, Nicholas Bowling, he made a video on the Islamic dilemma, has 1.3 million views. So this is not a minor thing, this is a huge thing, and it's acknowledged by both Muslims and non-Muslims as being a very potent argument against Islam. It's so much so that this argument actually appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Wes Huff, or Wes Buff as some call him, actually went on the Piers Morgan show and he talked about the Islamic dilemma as part of his bigger speech regarding religion. This video has just over 900,000, so almost 1 million views on YouTube alone. Capturing Christianity pointed this out in his video. That video has almost 500,000 views. So let's look at how Muslims have responded to this. So we have Dr. Khalil Andani debated Sam Shamoon on this. This has over 500,000 views on YouTube. He is an academic. He is from the Shia tradition, so not Sunni, but Shia. He thought the argument was popular enough and potent enough that he wanted to address it directly by debating Sam Shamoon. We have Daniel Hakikachu, again, a very popular Sunni Muslim. He debated David Wood on this topic. We have others, for example, Jake the Metaphysician, or Jake Bracatella. He debated God logic on this issue. We also have him debating Dr. David Wood, and we also have God logic going against John Fontaine of Hamza's Den. John Fontaine, of course, being one of the very proponents of a particular solution to the Islamic dilemma. And here he is. John Fontaine has actually written a book on the Islamic dilemma called Jesus and the Injil. You can get that on Amazon if you're so interested. And here's a picture of him riding into Speaker's Corner to debate me on the Islamic dilemma on horseback, as is the English tradition. He also debated David Wood on the topic as well. Now let's look at what contemporary scholars have to say about this argument, because this is not just a popular layman argument, this actually does have grounds in academia in multiple different ways. So this is Abdullah Saeed, he's Professor of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Melbourne, Australia. He says the following: since the authorized scriptures of the Jews and Christians remain very much today as they existed at the time of the Prophet. So he's acknowledging that our scriptures, the Torah and in the Injil, the Quran affirms, is very much the same as it is back then in the 7th century. The reverence the Quran has shown them at the time should be retained even today. He acknowledges that the Quran has great reverence for the Torah and Gospel that we have even in the 21st century. We also have Mahmoud Ayoub, professor of Islamic studies. He says, contrary to the general Islamic view, so he knows that this is not what Muslims say, but it is the truth, the Quran does not accuse the Jews and Christians of altering the text of their scriptures. Very powerful. We also have Abdullah Galadari, associate professor of Quranic studies at Khalifa University. He says, also, the Quran steadfastly states the Jews and Christians stand upon nothing unless they resurrect and uphold their scripture, which proves that their scriptures are not corrupt in the sense that the words have changed. And he acknowledges if there exist any apparent contradictions between the Bible and the Quran, perhaps it opens a dimension to examine the intended meanings. In other words, he actually knows and acknowledges that there are indeed apparent contradictions in the Quran and the Torah and Gospel. And his solution is actually just to try to reinterpret both. He then finally ends with, especially since it, that being the Quran, explicitly states that it defends the veracity of the Bible. Amazing stuff. And then, just one more point on this, the Islamic dilemma is early. It's not a modern argument. It's a really, really, really old argument that goes back to the early centuries of Islam. The Patriarch of Antioch, George of Baltan, him writing in the 8th century, he actually addresses the claim of biblical falsification, or tarif, in his own commentary on the Gospel of Matthew. Likewise, Al-Kindi, he wrote his Apology of Al-Kindi in the 9th century, and he openly says, look, you guys have a Quran that confirms the Torah and the Gospel, but you Muslims are forced to say they are corrupt. So this is clearly a very early argument that both Muslims and non-Muslims recognized. Now, finally, I'm going to bring in the OG, one of the best and most widely respected Islamic debaters that there is today. That is, of course, Nadir Ahmed, ladies and gentlemen. Nadir Ahmed here. He has something that he told me during our discussion of the Islamic dilemma. And I would say the only way, let's highlight that, the only way I can resolve this type of issue of trusting the Quran and claiming it to be right in this situation, we're talking about the Islamic dilemma, is by diverting the topic to the scientific miracles of the Quran. That's the only way I can resolve it, that being the Islamic dilemma. So thank you very much, Nadir. So let's summarize what this argument actually is. We know this argument's huge, we know it's very popular, we know it's very old, and we know it's in academia. But the argument itself, how do we express it? We do it like this. The Quran says the Torah and the Gospel are sent from Allah, and they're preserved in the time of Muhammad in the 7th century. And they are authoritative in a broad range of ways. Legally, in terms of theology, in terms of parables, in terms of biblical turns of phrase, in terms of prophecy, all these things the Quran thinks are the Torah and the Gospel are authoritative in. I'm just going to throw out a verse. I managed to find a verse that says this really well. So this is 241. And believe in what I have sent down, which is in this context the Quran, confirming that which is already with you. So clearly, what is already with them is the scriptures they already have, the Torah and the Gospel. The Quran elsewhere mentions the Torah and Gospel by name. So that's great. That verse confirms that really well. There's another verse here, 289. So I managed to find two of these. And then came to them a book, i.e. the Quran, from Allah, confirming that which was with them. So again, it's confirming the Torah and Gospel that are with them in the 7th century. There's another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and another, 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 and another. There's a total of 18 of these, and these are just the verses that use the Arabic word musaddiq as a confirmation of the scriptures that are in possession of the Christians and Jews. So this is not a little thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is a major theme in the Quran. The Quran absolutely loves the scriptures as held by the Christians and Jews in the 7th century. It thinks they're from Allah, it thinks they're preserved in the 7th century, and it thinks they're authoritative for all kinds of things. But to summarize, they're authoritatively true. They contain truth. They should align with the Islamic message that we find in the Quran. So, what does this mean? Well, it means the Quran rejects what Christians and Jews say about the Torah and Gospel. So it does, for example, in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah 5, you start from verse 70, read to about verse 80, and you'll notice the Quran says, these Jews and Christians, they say that Jesus is the Son of God. They say that Allah is the Father. They say Jesus, and it goes on to give some examples. Well, you'll notice that in all of these verses, it never talks about the written Torah and Gospel. It only ever talks about what the Jews and Christians themselves say, what is coming out of their mouths. And it rejects it explicitly in the Quran. What they say regarding this matter is wrong. Which is kind of problematic, because what the Christians and Jews say is often also found in the Torah and Gospel themselves, in the actual written scriptures that Allah claims is preserved and authoritative in the 7th century. Whoops. So that leads to this problem. The Quran is confirming or affirming the Torah and Gospel while also contradicting them in the same text. The Quran is being massively incoherent and inconsistent here. Whoever wrote the Quranic author, they have both said that the Torah and the Gospel are from Allah, preserved and authoritative, and that the prophets that revealed them revealed the same message that you find in these scriptures that the Quran is giving, and yet the Quran also just outright contradicts what we find in those texts in the 7th century, and before and after. It's almost as if the Quran author did not actually know what he was confirming. That, of course, would be an error, and that would mean that the Quran is false because it's not from God. But let's talk about some of these contradictions. So, Jesus' crucifixion, Quran says Jesus was not crucified for, that's chapter 4, ayah 157, but the Gospel in all accounts says he was crucified. Let's look at eschatological issues. The Quran says that there is marriage in the afterlife, and that this is Allah's plan. The Gospel says there is no marriage in the afterlife, and that is God's plan. We can look at missing content. So let's say the Quran describes sets of Torah. Oh, okay, a few word of minds. And give the same to Daniel. Yeah. Quran says Torah describes heaven and hell, but the Torah doesn't have a developed sense of heaven and hell, and yet the Quran says it should be there. The Quran says there's a binding command on Christians to wage aggressive warfare, but the Gospel says no such thing. The Quran says there's a prophecy of an illiterate or an Ummi prophet in the Torah and Gospel, but the Gospel and the Torah say no such thing. The stories of the prophets are radically different. Although they're clearly the same stories with the same characters, the same names, the same relations, the same setting, the Quran changes details. If the author of the Quran is the same author of the Torah and Gospel, why is the author telling the same story differently with different details? And I'm just going to conclude. The Quran author has made an error by affirming of the scriptures outside of itself that don't agree with the message of the Quran. Therefore, the Quran author is not infallible. And if the Quran author is not infallible and he makes errors, then the Quran is not divine. It's man-made. Therefore, if it's man-made, that means that Muhammad was not actually a prophet sent by God. Therefore, Islam, as understood, is wrong. And that's my time, ladies and gentlemen. Yep.
Awesome. All right, we appreciate that. Daniel, can you give me a quick mic check real quick? Make sure everything's working. It looks like you're muted.
Yeah, is it all right?
Yeah. Okay. Before we get started, just want to remind everybody to get your tickets for DebateCon 8 in Dallas coming up. It's going to be a banger. We have some really big debaters coming and bringing the heat. So I believe there is some links that keep getting posted in the chat here. Go ahead and snag them up before they're all gone. We expect those to sell out very, very soon. All right. I will start your time whenever you're ready.
Hey, everybody. The God of the Bible took a cosmic journey from the heavens and dove into the universe. And finally, when he reached the mountain of Moses, he was ecstatic, euphoric, and gave the 10 Commandments to Moses. Just after the event, though, when Moses returns to his community, he sees them committing a grave sin, the greatest of all, the blasphemy. And in a fit of anger, drops the tablets and shatters them into pieces. And soon after, God commands him to remake those tablets and come back to the mountain to have them inscribed all over again. And as soon as that happens, I think the God of the Bible succumbs to jet lag, a cosmic jet lag, and seems to have forgotten the Ten Commandments himself, and issues in Exodus 34 3 out of those initial 10, and then snoozes and sort of being motivated by the pagan laws of the time in which the Jews themselves were involved, worshipping the calf, perhaps moved by it, perhaps snoozed or swooned, perhaps the jet lag, the cosmic jet lag having overtaken him, documents 7 out of those initial 10 commandments to be Egyptian laws, tropes, and fraudulent, sacrificial, ritualistic commandments. 7 of those are Egyptian tropes and sacrificial commandments. 7 out of 10. What do you make out of that? Inconsistent, unreliable. You know, back in my day when I went to the uni, 70% was a distinction score. And it appears like God has scored a distinction in basically forgetfulness. What do you make out of this? Is the God of the heaven really beyond succumbing to these laws of snoozing, being swooned, carrying a cosmic jet lag? If none of that is true, then perhaps Aaron, who was guilty of blasphemy in the Bible, worshiping the golden calf, perhaps he might have documented it. Or perhaps the scribes, if you want to zoom in on the scribes of Israel, they might have corrupted it. But there is a clear-cut contradiction in the 10 commandments that God issues to Moses on the first count, and when he remakes those tablets on the second count. 7 of those commandments found in the first dictation are absent from the second dispensing. So a fraudulent account in Exodus 34, remaking the tablets after 40 days and nights, is misinformed, to say the least, and concludes with Moses writes down the 10 commandments. Now, this is what is called as corruption of scriptures, which the Quran points out. I would have to disagree with what Chris did here right now in the opening statement. He laid out that the Quran somehow confirms the preservation of the Torah and the Gospel. Well, he forgets 279, which clearly reads, "Miserable are those who write the scriptures with their own hands and then claim it is from God to gain a trivial trade. Misery to them for what their hands have written, and misery over their disgusting prophets." So the Quran clearly makes a case that Israelite scribes have corrupted the scriptures. Okay? Not just the Quran. Jesus makes it. And very conspicuously, Jeremiah the prophet makes it. He says, "Woe to the lying pen of the scribes," and he condemns the scribes of Israel. So, what is the dilemma? The dilemma, as I understand, and he just opened up with huge citations from a range of different people. So what's the dilemma? The dilemma, as I've understood, is this. The Quran contradicts the Bible and claims it is corrupted. Islam is false. The Quran confirms the Bible. If the Bible were true, then Islam is still false. Therefore, Islam is false. This is the premise with which they work. So I'm asking, what is the falsification of this premise? Now, here is the falsification I propose, which Chris should have proposed it, okay? But regardless, if the veracity of the Bible is discredited, then Islam is true, and the Islamic dilemma thus refuted. The Quran confirms the biblical truths and demonstrates the corruption in it, thus negating the inerrancy of the Bible. So, what I've just done here is demonstrated to you guys that the Ten Commandments documented in the Bible come in two different versions, and there's a 70% mismatch, 70% forgery, and it's a major thing. It's a major corruption. So the accounts in Deuteronomy and the accounts in Exodus of the first statement do not tally with the remade tablets, where God sort of insists that he just wrote down the Ten Commandments. They don't tally up. This is just one of the things, and there is plenty of such forgery in the Bible. So what do you make out of this? Is preservation intact? No, it's inadequate. So preservation is out of the window. It just blew out of the window. Perhaps you have never seen this because you were busy doing polemics of the Quran because of whatever you wanted to prove about Prophet Muhammad not being a true prophet of God, possibly hate towards the Arab prophet, possibly hate towards the Arabic name Allah, possibly hate towards the Quran. You have not somehow studied your own scriptures for why the Quran states or insists or emphasizes that they are corrupt, while your own prophets in the Bible have confirmed the corruption thereof. So what do I make out of this? The dilemma is refuted because the Quran clearly states that the Bible is corrupt. If the Quran did not state the Bible was corrupt, then there would be a problem with the Quran. Then the secular scholars might argue there are contradictory passages in the Bible. Why does the Quran say the Bible is the complete truth? Therefore, the Quran is also dribbles. And Muhammad just copied the Bible, not knowing or deciphering those contradictions. Maybe it was hard on him because he was illiterate. That's how the seculars might argue, right? But apparently not. Prophet Muhammad succumbs to none of those dribbles. He clearly lays out the premises, confirming what God revealed to the prophets of Israel and calling out the corruption in the writings of the Israelite scribes. So where is the dilemma? Bloody hell, it's not there. I remember 9 years ago, one of the mates in Australia where I live, he had a discussion with me about Islamic dilemma, not telling me the name or anything like that. I didn't care much because I didn't care much about it. So I remember having this discussion 9 years ago, and I told him, he was a David Wood fan, and I told him there's no such thing. And we had a small little discussion on chapter 5 of the Quran, discussing how the Bible and the gospel, the Torah and the gospel were authoritative, okay, on its own merit. And after that, I'm only figuring out Islamic dilemma since I'm coming back to the internet on YouTube right now.
All right, you
like
got a
after 9
minute
years.
left, Daniel.
Yeah, sure. So after 9 years is when I got reintroduced to Islamic dilemma by the Word and I, and I was fascinated to see it becoming such a massive thing. And thanks to the Salafis, they've done an excellent job creating impediments in the path of the Quran and in the path of the religion of Almighty God, because they rely on middle-aged literature, which is simply inadequate. And I've seen their struggles, and I've documented them on my channel. I've done debate reviews. I've given losses to Jake Brancatella on this particular subject, at least. So I know how poorly the Salafis fare in this subject matter, but yeah, today we'll check it out. According to me, what I've just demonstrated is Bible is basically contradicting the fundamental communication, which is the Ten Commandments from Almighty God. Therefore, corruption is demonstrated, and therefore the Quran is true. There is no dilemma whatsoever. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, that's right on time. Perfect. All right, so we're going to get into the 60-minute open dialogue. If it gets too contentious or one person's talking over the other, I'll break it into some timed responses. I imagine we're both gentlemen here, and we can keep it nice and cordial. So, Chris, you started. Daniel just did his. So, if you want to start it from here and kind of get it going, I'll start the timer for that. And then, if everybody could like the video, subscribe if you're not. Teriak, I believe, was watching and rated. Appreciate you, all you new people watching. If y'all could subscribe, like the video, and get your tickets to DebateCon 8 coming up in July. All right, Chris, we're going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I just want to say thank you for having me, by the way. Don't think I actually said that in the intro. And likewise, thank you, Daniel, for joining and having this debate. So, Daniel, you said that you think the Quran clearly teaches that the previous scriptures have been corrupted. Can you show me a single verse in the Quran that says that the gospel has been corrupted?
I showed you 279.
Okay. Does that say... What's that referring to?
And 279 clearly says, فَوَيْلٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَكْتُبُونَ الْكِتَابَ بِأَيْدِيهِمْ. Woe to those, misery to those who write the book with their own hands. ثُمَّ يَقُولُونَ هَذَا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Then claim it on God's name. لِيَشْتَرُوا بِهِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا. To traffic with it for a small gain. فَوَيْلٌ لَهُمْ مِمَّا كَتَبَتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ. So misery on them for what they've written. وَوَيْلٌ لَهُمْ مِمَّا يَكْسِبُونَ. And for their disgusting profits.
Chris,
Okay,
real quick, before you respond, chat's saying your mic's low. Yeah, if you could do like a 20% increase, just to spite Aquavite. He said 30.
How's that?
Much better. Chat, tell me what you
Okay.
think.
Tell me what you think. I might be too loud now, but we'll see. Okay, so is there any other verses in the Quran that you can go to show that the Torah or the Gospel are corrupted?
Well, one should be sufficient for a man of
Well,
reflection and
so I think the answer
thought.
to that is no. And unless you can show
No,
me
there
otherwise,
is.
the answer
There
is
is.
no. Can you give me one?
I mean, if you would like to see, I can show you what the Quran basically talks about, how Christians and Jews have what they've done to the scriptures. So there's a verse in chapter chapter 9, verse 30. The word that the Quran uses just occurs once in this in the entirety of the Quran, and this word is yudahi'una. Okay, so basically what the Quran says here to the Jews and the Christians, well, what they have done to the scriptures is this. The Jews say Israel is the son of God, which on its own is a different debate topic, and I'm willing to debate anybody on this particular subject, okay, but not today. The Jews say Israel is the son of God, and Christians say the Messiah is the son of God. That is their statement from their mouths.
Okay, just
They
to
compose,
quickly jump in here.
they,
This verse
let me
isn't
finish.
talking about... Okay.
They compose theology in a layer of literary dependent models typical of the disbelievers of the past. God killed them. How badly are they deluded? So the actual word that I've translated here, composing theology in a layer of literary dependent models, that word translated as parroting is actually yudahi'una, occurs just once in the Quran, and paints an impression that the Jews and the Christians borrowed the literary models of the pagan world and rendered their scriptures in those literary dependent models.
Okay, there's nothing in this verse that mentions scriptures at all.
Guess what the verse is saying? The Jews say Israel is the son of God, and the Christians say,
they say
Messiah
it.
is the son of God.
Right, and it says what? It says this is their statement
That is
from
their
their
statement
mouths.
from their mouths.
Okay, so that's what they say.
They compose theology in a layer of literary dependent models. Yudahi'una. It says yudahi'una.
Okay.
Go check out what the word
But I'm
means.
talking about their scriptures, Daniel. I want to see where the scriptures are corrupt, not what people are saying. Because in my presentation, remember I said the Quran does say Christians and Jews say things out of their own mouths that aren't true. But there's no verse in the Quran that ever says the Torah or the Gospel have been textually corrupt. There's not a single verse
Why
in
do
the
you?
Quran.
Why? Wait a second. Okay, I get your point. I get your point.
Okay,
It doesn't specifically say Torah or the Injil. All right, I
right.
get your point. Okay, but why do you want to ignore 279, where it clearly says the
Oh no,
scribes
let's
were
talk about
writing?
279. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love 279. I mean, if you read the next verse, I think it's very clear it's talking about the Talmud or the Mishnah. The very next
Which verse?
verse, the very next verse. So Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, Ayah 80. And it says, and they say, never will the hellfire touch us except for a number of days. That's not found in the Torah. So if this is supposedly
Need
them
not be found
corrupting
in
the
the Torah.
Torah, then that's incorrect because that's not in the Torah today.
Yeah.
So that would be an
It
error.
need not be found in the Torah. It need not be found in the Torah.
But the Quran,
Why do you
okay,
insist?
wait.
Why
When
do
it
you
says they
insist
write the
it has
book,
to be
what
found
book
in
is
the
being
Torah?
written? Which book? In verse 79, it says, woe to those who write the book with their own hand, right? What book is that? Or what
It's the
scripture is
Bible.
that?
It's the Old
It's the
Testament.
whole Bible.
It's the Old Testament.
How do you know it's the Old Testament?
It's those 5 books of the Old Testament, Tanakh.
Okay, so it's a Torah.
It's the Tanakh, yeah.
Okay, so if it's if it's a Torah, why do we not find that
It is
some
not.
kind of
It
verse
is not the Torah.
that
It is
says,
the Tanakh. The first 5 books of the Old Testament.
okay, fine. So what, or whatever you want to call it, the Pentateuch, the Tanakh. But why do we not find that statement from that supposedly they added? The next verse says, and they say, never will the fire touch us except for a limited number of days. Why is that not there?
Well, it need not be there.
Wait, but
Why,
according to
why do you
you,
insist? Why
this
do you
verse is
insist it
talking
has
about
to
the
be
Torah
there?
being corrupted, and the very next
Yeah.
verse tells you this is the thing they're saying. So why is it not there?
They might be. No, they might be saying that. That's fine, but it need not be found in the Pentateuch, right? Why do you insist that it has to be found
Because
in
the
Pentateuch?
Quran tells you in the very prior verse, people are changing the scripture, right? And they sell it for a little gain. Woe to those for what they write with their own hands and sell for a little gain. The next verse says, and they say, never will the fire touch us except for a number of days. And the Quran goes on to refute that. But that's not found in the Torah. It's not there. It's not anywhere even in the whole Old Testament. In fact, it's not anywhere even in the entire Bible. So this can't be talking about our scriptures. And keep in mind,
That's
Daniel,
that's not a fair assumption. To be honest with you, that's not
why
a
is
fair
that not
assumption.
fair?
Because
Why is that
the
not fair at all?
Quran doesn't say that it is found in the Old Testament. Does it say that? It just
The
says
very
they
next
say,
verse says,
they're-
and
they're-
it's continuing from the
Fine.
prior verse, and
That's fine,
they
Chris.
say, but that
Yeah.
that quotation is not in the entire Bible.
that
You
itself
won't find that
is
theology
telling-
anywhere.
That itself is telling that it is not to be found in the Pentateuch, because the Quran says, and they say, they claim, after having done whatever they've done to the scriptures, they're claiming.
So wouldn't they have
Then
added that
enough.
very thing?
Fire will not touch us. Sorry.
Wouldn't they
That
have added
claim
that
need not
very
be
statement?
found in the
It
Old
wasn't-
Testament, my dear friend. Why do you
Exactly.
why are you
so the
getting
Quran
confused?
is in error then, isn't it?
How?
Because the Quran's telling you, look, they changed their scriptures, right? I mean, if you understand it the way you want to understand it, I understand it differently. I don't think the Quran is trying to tell you that there's been universal textual corruption. The Quran is just telling you a small group of people did something. And I think that this is an attack on the Talmud, on the oral Torah, because it's found in the oral Torah. We know where this theology comes from. It's a later rabbinic understanding that is being reflected back into the Torah. It comes from the oral
That's
Torah, the
fine.
Mishnah.
That is completely fine. It's
Okay,
completely
so
fine.
so the Quran is saying
Because the
that
Quran
Jews
is not making a
corrupted-
claim that those words are found in the Old Testament. Do you understand that?
I'm saying the Quran's talking about the Talmud. So, and that means
The
the
Quran
Quran in the
never-
previous verse is talking about the Talmud.
No, hang on for a second. The Quran never makes a reference to Talmud or the rabbinical literature. Never.
It
always
it
makes
constantly
a reference.
references
It
in
always
many
makes a
places.
reference. It always makes a reference to Torah, to Injil, and the book. That the
But it
scribes
does
have written.
reference the Talmud and it has awareness of the Talmud. It demonstrates this all over
Okay.
the place. 532
The Jewish
is
people-
clearly a quote
the
from
Jew-
the Talmud.
The Jewish people, what they thought, what they spoke, how they developed theology, may have been documented in Talmud. That's fine.
Right,
The
so
Quran is not in
279 is about
error.
the Talmud.
The Quran is not in error because they documented their thoughts in Talmud. The Quran
Okay,
doesn't.
fine. So if you agree, do you agree with me then
You
that
know,
279 is about the Talmud?
no, it's not. Do you want to know
See,
what it's all about?
this is my point. I literally I can find the exact places and I can show you exactly what part of the Talmud they're quoting from. Because what the
Okay, but
Quran
you're saying,
cites in the very next verse is not in the Torah or the entire Bible. So you using 279 to say, oh, this is proof of corruption of the Bible is silly because it's not referring to the Bible at all. So again, this is the
okay,
only verse that you have, and I've just refuted that verse. So I've just
would you like
shown
me
you
to
from the.
demonstrate?
All
Would
right,
you like me to demonstrate that to you?
Chris. Yeah, let him respond to that, Chris, please.
Okay.
Would you like me to demonstrate what 279 is all about? Okay,
Sure,
be
yeah, yeah.
Go
patient.
ahead, Daniel.
From the
Be
Quran.
patient. Okay, be patient.
Do you
all
want
right?
to share your screen? Just let me know beforehand if so that I could change the scene.
Okay, just bear with me.
No worries if not. Chat, send in some super chats. Talk to the debaters in the Q&A section. That's going to be happening in about 45, 50 minutes. That's probably one of the funnest parts. You guys get to get answers to your questions, get to get something off your chest, be respectful, and keep it on the topic if you could. Shout out Life in HD. You're a big supporter of the channel. Appreciate that.
So right there, can you share the screen?
Is this your own commentary?
Yeah, that's my own commentary. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So, all right.
So basically, if you go there, that's where the context begins, and I'll give you supporting scriptures from the Old Testament. Okay. So basically, the Quran says here, from 61, from 67 onwards, there's a story about Moses and the red heifer
Okay.
and the human corpse. Okay, and the human corpse.
Is this going to
Let me
show
finish.
us? I know, but I just want to, because otherwise you're going to go through a whole like exegesis here. So I just want to make sure
No, just
this
let
is
me
going to show
finish.
us it's talking about the Torah, right? Is that the point?
Let me finish, bro. Can you be please patient? I'll finish. All right. So there's a story about a red heifer in Numbers, I think it's 19, and the human corpse. Okay. And what basically happens in that story is, as comes in the Old Testament, it's a cleanup ritual of cleaning. But in the Quran, the story has some gravity to it. In the Quran, the priests of Israel commit a crime and they want to hide the crime. Okay. And one of their
Daniel,
affinity,
you don't need to go this far into this.
one of their affinity is calf worship. As soon as they came through Exodus, they worshiped the calf when Moses was on the mountain. Remember that? So they were carrying their Egyptian baggage with them. All right. Even though they saw the miracles of God, they were not moved. They went back to calf worship. All right. Now, the taint of calf worship was within their subconscious mind. Okay. And the priests of
Daniel,
Israel, they commit a crime. They kill a person.
I'm gonna have to
Now,
interrupt you
God tells them, I want to expose their crime. So the way he does it is orders them to slaughter a red heifer, and then the meat thereof is touched on the corpse,
Okay.
and the human corpse comes back to life and reveals the murder, right?
Mike,
But
can
now
you
the
step in
Jews
here
wanted
because
to, the Israelites
he's
wanted to hide this. Let me finish. I'm finishing.
you're
The
literally
Jews
reading
wanted to,
the whole section. What's the point of this? I
no,
don't
I'm
even know
not.
what your
I'm not
point is.
reading. I'm not. You got to let me finish. You got
No,
to
tell
let
me
me
what your
finish. If you
point
want
is,
to know what the
Daniel.
answer is,
Daniel,
you
I
got to let
don't
me
know what the
finish.
point of this is. You're just reading the Quran to me. Tell me what is the point you're making?
The point is this. The point is this. In the story comes in, just bear with me. In Numbers, I think it's in. Just bear with me.
Is your point that the story is different from the biblical text? Is that what you're getting at?
No, wait a second. What I'm saying to you is the corruption and the 279, the kind of corruption that's talking about. All right. What is the corruption that it's talking about? That's what I'm trying to get at. All right. So just bear with me.
My whole point is that it's not even talking about the biblical text. So can you refute that? Can you show me? No, it definitely is talking about the Torah.
Because
Tanakh,
this
the
story
Pentateuch.
comes in Numbers, my friend. This story comes in Numbers. The
You mean the
Pentateuch.
book of Numbers? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
now?
the book of Numbers. Yeah.
Okay,
That's where the story appears.
wait.
Right.
So you're showing me the story is different. Okay, my point to you is this: there is nothing here that is telling you that this is talking about a particular story at all. In fact, if anything, the next verse is the context. Do you understand? All this is doing, these are just like prior things talking about the Jewish people. And I agree, it's about the Jews, it's about the children of Israel. The context demonstrates that. You don't need to show that, I already agree with you. My point is that by reading the next verse, verse 80, it goes on to tell you what they added, and what they added is found in the Talmud.
280 is a new context.
How do you know that?
Changes the
It says
context.
what?
It just
It says
changes the context. Because the conclusion is this. The conclusion that the Quran draws from the verse 67 onwards is this story of the human corpse and the red heifer, which has been manipulated, fabricated in the book of Numbers 19 or 20. I'm not sure where it is. But that's where the Israelites are trying to hide. And they turn this whole thing into a cleanliness ritual, which is inhumane, by the way. They introduce the order that God gave for them to slaughter the red heifer was because of purification from sin. And what is the sin? They say touching the human corpse is a sin. How can touching a human corpse be determined sin by this divine entity, divine God? It's inhuman to do that. If somebody dies, it's required, it's a good action, a good work. It's considered to be a good work to go and prepare and do the funerary services. It cannot be a sin.
Okay, Daniel, I'm just going to move on
What the
from
Israelites
this,
are doing right there is
I think I got your point.
forging a story, committing a forgery, and then hiding their crimes. And that's when the Quran says they are writing the scripture with their own hands and calling it on God.
Well, actually,
That's
it's a few verses after that.
The context is not 280. The context is what comes before 279, and 279 happens to be the conclusion.
Well, you have to go about 5 or so verses, or even more verses before that to even get to that story. Whereas I'm just
absolutely.
With
That's how it works. That's how the context works. You got to go before and see what the context.
The context in Arabic is very clear. What it says, and they, so it's talking about the same people, and then it says, and they say, never will the fire touch us except for a limited number of days.
That's fine.
That's not in the biblical text. So it's
that
not
is
talking about the biblical text.
That is fine.
I want to talk about something else now because I don't think you have more to say.
What they say, no, I don't think you're understanding, my dear friend. I don't think you're understanding.
I know, I understand. I just think that's
what they say. They may have documented that in Talmud or in Mishnah or any other literature, rabbinical literature. That's not an issue. The issue is not that. The issue is what is the context of 279. 279 begins
clearly the next
from 267. And that's the corruption that the Quran is highlighting that comes in.
You're jumping back to a story like 10 verses prior. That makes no sense.
That's what you do to go and read the context.
To get the context, you read the next verse. The next verse is continuing from the prior verse. It's the same people being mentioned, and it tells you what they added. I don't know why you're ignoring this. Anyway, Daniel,
and look,
my next question for you
need not be found in the OT, by the way. Okay,
what? Sorry,
the Quran clearly says, and they claim, وَقَالُوا لَن تَمَسَّنَا النَّارُ, and they claim that fire will not touch us. Right. That's fine. Right. It could have been in Talmud, could have been in Mishnah, could have been in rabbinical literature. No worries. That does nothing.
So it's talking about the Talmud or the Mishnah then? It's not talking about the actual written Torah?
Not.
Thank you.
You're not getting the point. 279 is all about the forgery that the scribes did with respect to the red heifer and the human corpse.
Even though that story is like 10 verses before.
That comes in the book of Numbers.
And you're completely ignoring the next verse. I mean, come on, Daniel. All right,
I'm not ignoring my dear friend.
My next point is this. When did this corruption happen?
You're prejudiced.
When did the corruption happen, if you wouldn't mind? When did the corruption of the text, the biblical text, let's say, for example, the story in Numbers, when did that happen?
The very first time they're documenting the scriptures.
The very first time, as in like documenting, you mean writing down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so when Jesus comes with the Torah, presumably it didn't include that corruption, right?
What do you mean Jesus comes with the Torah?
The Quran says very clearly, in Surah Al-Imran, ayah 50, that Jesus confirmed the Torah that was between his hands. Okay,
yeah, that's
so
fine.
Jesus
was
given the Torah. Okay, great. So
between
Jesus
his hands?
Yeah, the
between
one that
his
was given
hands?
to the one that was given to him from Allah.
You just painted an impression that Jesus somehow had Torah in his hands.
I'm using the idiom. Mabayna yadehi.
Okay.
I'm not talking about physical books, right? What I'm saying is that he had the
Good,
Torah,
good,
right, from Allah.
good. Yeah.
Okay, so if he had the Torah from Allah, it wasn't corrupted, right? Because this one's from Allah.
Even now, even in 7th century, when the Quran talks about the Torah, it talks about Torah being a scripture that God gave to Moses, right?
Right?
The revelation that
And
God gave to Moses, the
the
instruction
Quran
that God gave to Moses.
and the Quran confirms that Torah in
It's
at
fine.
least 17 different verses, and
Absolutely
including
it
the one
does.
that Jesus has.
Absolutely. What
Okay,
do you
so it
mean
can't be
Jesus
corrupted
has?
then.
What do you mean Jesus has?
Mabayna yadehi, what he has with him, that's all I mean. He has it, right? He has the
No.
Torah.
Baina yadayhim does not mean that. Baina yadayhi means what came before Jesus. Baina yadayya
Right,
is the
right. So he
exact,
has the
exact phrase.
Torah
It's
that
an
was given to
idiom.
Moses, and now he's been given it, yes?
He hasn't got it. Do you reckon in the first
Do you know
century
that the
Jesus was
Quran
walking with
clearly says that...
this codex in his hand?
Hang
Do
on,
you
wait,
reckon that
sorry.
was true?
Are you denying that the Isa had the Torah given to him? He was taught the Torah.
He was taught the Torah, not that
Okay,
he had
thank
it
you.
in his
So
hand.
that's it. That's it
Yeah,
then. That's all I'm saying.
yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
Jesus was taught the Torah. That's an uncorrupted version of the Torah because it comes from Allah, right?
Absolutely.
And the
Absolutely.
Quran confirms the Torah over and over again, including
Absolutely.
when Jesus has the Torah taught to him. So it can't be
It does.
corrupted then. It can't be corrupted
is
by
not-
the 7th century.
The Torah is found in the Bible that we have today. It's found there.
And it's not corrupted then. Because Jesus
It
was
is
given
found
the
there.
uncorrupted
What is
version of it.
corrupted is the book. What is corrupted is the book. All right?
But
The book is corrupted.
The
But the
Quran...
Torah, the instruction to Moses is found in that book. But you will have to decipher it. The instruction is there. But what the
decipher
scribes
it.
have done is
Where does the
they
Quran
have
say to
written down
decipher
the
anything?
instruction. They've written down the instruction with their annotations. For example, I will give you an example with which you can actually relate to. Ibn Kathir has done his volume. He quotes a Quran verse and then he annotates it. If someone were to come today and go like, oh, Ibn Kathir's volume is the Quran, that would be a huge blunder. That's exactly what you guys do. You guys pick up a book where the instruction of God is found and is annotated by the scribes and call the whole volume as the Holy Bible, inerrant Holy Bible. And that's the
Well, the Quran does
blunder
that.
with which you
That's
guys
my point.
work.
The Quran confirms the Torah and Gospel
It
in the
does.
7th century.
When did I say no? I never.
You
I
said
never
it's
denied
corrupted,
that. I said the book is corrupted.
and the Quran refers to the book in chapter 7.
Yeah, the
verses
Quran. The Quran says
157.
the book that the scribes have is corrupted.
So the Quran confirms a corrupted book.
The Quran confirms the Torah and the Injil and the truth that is contained in the book. It is confirming the truth thereof, just like how Jesus does.
Can you show me
Confirms
where it
the
says
truth
that in the
thereof.
Quran?
Sorry?
Where does it say it's only confirming the truth within these books? Can you show me that in the Quran?
Because every time the Quran talks about confirmation, it talks about revelation being confirmed, not the scribal work being confirmed.
No, it talks about what's
Revelation
been
is being
written.
confirmed.
7157 talks about what's being written.
It also says 7157 says you have your prophet mentioned in the written records.
With
The
what you
confirmation
have.
is very specific. The confirmation there is very specific. Not the whole of the writings, but
Right.
the
So
prophecy,
if
the Mustafic prophecy is what is being confirmed. All right.
I
Yeah.
understand that, but you need to understand like how we speak and how we communicate things. If I say to you, "Could you get me a sandwich from the shop?" If you came back with only a small part of the corner of a sandwich, that wouldn't be fulfilling the criteria because I clearly said, "Can you give me a sandwich from the shop? Can you buy me one?" So likewise, in this context, if I say to you, "I believe in the Quran," you're not going to think, "Oh, well, Chris is only referring to a tiny little segment of the Quran or a very specific category of things in the Quran." You're going to think, no, because he never specified, he just said he believes in the Quran, he must refer wholesale, generally, to the Quran. So every time the Quran says there is a confirmation that this is a Quran that is brought down to you, confirming that which you have with you, and never elaborates or says, by the way, it's only these things in particular it's confirming, not these, then the basic understanding is it's a wholesale confirmation. That's just how language works.
It is very specific in terms where it sort of confirms in relation to the Mustafic prophecies, okay, which I believe as a Christian you would understand them to be messianic prophecies. And in other places where it says the Quran confirms the revelation given to the prophets, okay, the Quran never says it confirms the book that is with you. In fact, there are clear verses like 279 which says the scribes corrupted it.
It does say it does say it confirms what
you don't
is
even
with
have
you.
to
It
come to
does
the
say it
Quran.
confirms the
Jeremiah
book with
the prophet
you.
himself says that. Sorry?
No, the Quran does say in many places that it confirms what is with you.
When the Quran says that, it's saying it's confirming the revelation thereof, not the writings of the scribes.
But it says that the Torah and Gospel are written down and the Quran confirms them as being true.
Absolutely. That's precisely why you have 279, where it clearly says the scribes wrote down corruption. Clearly says
First
that.
of all,
Clearly.
you know, it's only,
There's no
first
doubt.
of all, wait. The problem you first have is this is only possibly referring to the Torah. It's not even referring to the Gospel. So to make blanket statements about, for example, the Gospel and the fact that the Quran confirms the Gospel, even though it says Jesus is crucified and the Quran denies that Jesus was crucified according to Orthodox belief, like that 279 doesn't help you there. 279 isn't even relevant there.
That is why you have to go to 930. I showed you 930.
930 doesn't mention the Gospel or the Scriptures, the written form, in any sense.
930 mentions Christology. All right.
I never mentioned Christology.
Sorry?
I never mentioned Christology. I said Jesus' crucifixion.
I'm saying to you what 930 is all about. 930 is a blanket statement which says the scriptures have been rendered using the literary models of the pagan world, of the disbelievers.
Okay, well, that's not what it
So
says. That's
rendering
what
of the scriptures, the Quran says yudahi'una. Yudahi'una is a very clear word. It says rendering of the scriptures has happened with the literary models of the pagan world, of the disbelievers.
It doesn't say scriptures here. Show me where it says scriptures in 930.
Let me pull that verse here. Wait a second. Let me pull that verse here.
It talks about what they say.
That's fine. What they say
Daniel.
is fine. What it says is يُضَاهِئُونَ قَوْلَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ قَبْلِ. So what it's saying is they're borrowing the literary models of the disbelievers of the past.
According to your interpretation.
That's exactly what it is saying. Okay.
No, it's quite simple. It's saying, look, the Jews say Uzair is the son of God, while the Christians say the Messiah is the son of God. That is a saying of their own mouths. It's rejecting a Christological statement, because I do think that being a Messiah is a Christological statement. But I'm talking about the crucifixion, for example. The crucifixion is something the Gospels say happened. The Quran denies it. So how's that not a contradiction?
The fact that crucifixion happens and post-Christ, basically. So it's not the teaching that the Christ himself gave. Obviously, he couldn't give because he was crucified, and whatever happened to him. So there are narrators who are narrating the passion narrative, okay? So this is not the teachings of Jesus. The teachings of Jesus is what is called the Injil. Let me finish. The Injil is not the passion narrative that observers, even if you want to believe that, have come up with. The Injil is the teaching that Jesus gave to the people, okay?
Okay.
So that's the Injil. Passion narrative is not the Injil.
Yeah. Right. So however you try and discredit any content within the Gospels is irrelevant, because the Quran confirms them.
What does the Quran confirm? The Quran does not confirm the passion narrative.
No, the Quran
never says Jesus
according
was
to
crucified.
Orthodox Muslim belief, the Quran denies the crucifixion. It was only made to appear to them that Christ was crucified, when in fact that was not the case. Whereas the Gospels say that did actually happen, and we know what the Gospel is because the Quran quotes and paraphrases from the Gospels, including the biographical accounts that the authors themselves included.
I don't think the Quran is paraphrasing crucifixion in any way. It's not a substitution theory. Substitution theory is not in the Quran.
Here? Isn't it addressing it in 157?
It just says he wasn't crucified.
Right, so it acknowledges that there is an understanding that the crucifixion occurred, it then rejects that explicitly, saying, no, 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 it only appeared to them that this occurred, when in fact it did not occur. And yet we find in the Gospels that it says it did occur. So in other words, there's a contradiction here between what the Quran says and what the Gospel accounts say. Even though the Quran is confirming the Gospel over and over again. It's from Allah. You need to believe in the Quran because it confirms what is with you. Even though we know it doesn't. That's false. The Quran author made a mistake.
The discernment is critical, actually, Chris. The discernment is this. The Quran confirms the Injil given Christ, and Christ dispensed those teachings to his disciples. Okay, but the passion narrative, the crucifixion narrative, is not from Christ. It's from observers. Okay, it's from scribes. All right. So you should not confuse the passion narrative to Injil. Injil is the teaching that Jesus Christ gave. Yeah.
We know what the Injil is. First of all, it's the Greek term euangelion, which has ultimately made its way into the Arabic, most likely through Ethiopic or Ge'ez at the time. We know that term because it has its meaning there from a Greek word that to a Christian audience would mean the gospel. So the Quran is talking to Christians, right? So the Christians need to be able to understand what the Quran author is trying to get at. And the only way that's going to happen is if the Christian audience knows what the Quran means by the word Injil. And the Christians would have known what that word means through many reasons. One, the fact that the Quran paraphrases the gospel accounts. It paraphrases the biographical account found in Luke, for instance. So the identity is clearly understood. It's the fourfold gospels, at the very least. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We know that from the words the Quran is choosing to use to describe it and how that would be understood by Christians in the 7th century in Arabia. And we know because the Quran is paraphrasing material found in these texts. That is beyond dispute. So the Quran author clearly knew about the crucifixion and then clearly chose to deny the crucifixion while simultaneously telling people that you should totally believe what the gospel is because it's from Allah and it's authoritative and it's preserved.
Yeah, okay. So I think I'll have to share the next half an hour, I suppose, in my inquiry. Is that how it works? I will definitely answer this question before I proceed with my investigation.
Mike, you're...
Hey, James, is that how it works?
You muted. Actually, are you muted? I can't hear you either way. Yeah, we can't hear you. You can ask me questions, by the way, Dan.
Mike,
Okay,
I'll just finish this and then I'll ask you questions, all right?
I'm not sure what's going on with my mic.
Okay, now look, again, I could translate the word Injil as gospel, and obviously gospel account includes the passion narrative in it.
Can you hear me now? I don't know why Zoom just stopped recognizing my headphones. So all I was going to say is, yeah, we hit the 30-minute mark. Oh, they're saying I have an echo now. Second. I got it. Okay. There are 2 mutes on this microphone. Apologies, chat, for the echo. I was saying we're at the 30-minute mark. We're going to go ahead and if you want to kind of swap it up, you did your kind of interrogation there, Chris. We can kind of switch it back, give a little bit of pushback for Daniel here for questions. And, you know, all I ask is that kind of stay on topic as best as possible, guys.
Sounds good, yep.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start the time back up and get ready to go. Whenever you're ready, Daniel.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. And look, I was just answering something to Chris. So definitely, I can't translate the word Injil for gospel, and gospel does include the passion narrative. But these are conveniences of language. Okay, it should not. What should be deciphered is what is the teaching of Christ and what isn't the teaching of Christ. Was Christ even alive to talk about his crucifixion? He wasn't. So it's the observers who have spoken about his crucifixion, the passion narrative, and we know how it got developed after 70 AD. All right. So it's not Injil. Injil is a teaching given by Christ to his
You need
disciples.
to prove
That's
that.
I will end it there. Okay. Now I'll step into my investigation. So here, the topic today is Islamic dilemma even real? Okay. So what I did is the Christian framework, the apologetics framework, works on revelation, preservation, and authority. And we have seen some debates where authority was discussed at length, even though I don't agree with that. Okay, I don't agree with Jake Brancatella's articulation of what authoritative scripture really means. All right, but that's for another time. But what we really discussed today is preservation, which previous debaters haven't really touched on, which is to demonstrate that the documentation of the Bible does come with errors, significant errors in the most fundamental of its message, which is the Ten Commandments themselves. So does that
Yeah,
prove
but-
to you, Chris, that the Bible is corrupt?
So let's say I conceded and said, for the sake of argument, yes, that actually makes the Islamic dilemma worse. That's the
How
whole
does it
point.
make it worse? How does it
Because
make it
because
worse?
the Quran is confirming those corruptions. The
It
Quran
is
didn't
not,
know that
my dear.
there weren't corruptions.
Why do you want to willfully ignore 279? Why do you want to consider
Daniel
279 to be a
279 was like
Talmudic,
a whisper among
Talmudic
a
thing?
crowd.
Why? Whereas
It was
the
a flame that quickly died out. 279 got you nowhere.
no,
270
look, wait a
you couldn't
second.
even establish 279 was about the Torah, and you kind of ended up admitting, yeah, it's fine if it's talking about the Talmud. Well, great. So 279 is blaming a small group of Jews for writing the Talmud.
Hang on a second. Let me clarify this whole thing right now. So when the Quran talks about Torah, it confirms the Torah and
Yeah,
it confirms
over
the Injil.
17 times.
Okay,
Yeah.
it confirms the Injil, it confirms the Torah. Fine, no problems with it. Okay. But when the Quran talks about corruption in the book, it talks about the Bible as a whole, and especially the Tanakh. All right. And
How
now
does it do
we
that?
have a story in the book of Numbers. Hang on a second. We have a story in the book of Numbers where the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, this is the requirement of the law that the Lord has commanded. Tell the Israelites to bring you a red heifer without defect or blemish and has not been under the yoke. Okay, and the priest should slaughter it, burn it, okay, and then preserve the ashes thereof to create what is called as a chemistry of purification water. And then what is the sin with which it should cleanse them? The sin is touching a human corpse. Okay, why would touching a human corpse be considered a sin? It's inhumane for God to do that. When somebody passes
I have no
away,
idea where
it's
this is going.
required of us. It's required of us to do the duty, to do the good work, and do the funerary services. It shouldn't be a sin. So this is the corruption straight away coming out of the book of Numbers, and this is the corruption that the Quran is pointing at.
There's
After
no evidence for it
narrating,
at all.
after narrating the red heifer and the human corpse, the Quran says the scribes wrote it down with their lying pen, and misery to them for what they've done. And the Quran then says they claim that the fire will not touch us. And the Quran doesn't
Right.
say that it should be part of Pentateuch or it is part of the Torah. It doesn't say that. It says they are claiming, after having done forgeries,
So
they are
you're
claiming
trying
and
to
asserting
read
that the
into
Quran.
79 something that's not there. You have to go like 10
Come on.
verses before it to find
That's how
another
the
story
context is
to say
laid
it's
out.
referring to that story.
My dear
I'm
friend,
reading it
that's how
in
the context is
context.
laid out. That's how the context is laid out. You got to
No,
go
no,
first
Daniel, that's not how
and
context
read
works.
the context
That's
and then draw.
eisegesis. You're reading into your own text.
279 is a conclusion. Do you agree or you disagree?
How do you no, well, first of all, I don't think it ends there. So that's wrong
279,
anyway.
I'm saying 279, the matter of 279 is a conclusion drawn. Would you agree or would you disagree?
The matter of 279, as in it ends
Yeah.
in 280.
The matter in 279 is a conclusion drawn. Would you agree or you
Yeah.
disagree?
So I would say it seems to
That's
me
it.
that
So
the
why
immediate...
do you think the Quran is
It's,
drawing a
I would
conclusion?
say that the beginning of it is probably 75. I wouldn't say all the way back to like 68 or whatever. Like that's
Okay.
you're just
Okay,
trying
good.
to
Thank you. Thank you
connect
for yielding.
things when the Quran
Thank you
itself
for
doesn't do
yielding.
that.
Thank you
The
for
Quran
yielding.
in its
Thank you for
context.
All right,
is
Daniel,
talking-
did you have another question that you wanted to follow that up with, or?
No, thank you for yielding. He just yielded. He said the context begins at 75. Okay.
Yes.
But now I will continue this. In Numbers 19, the story of the red heifer and the human corpse are in one chapter. All of it is in one chapter. The book of Numbers, chapter 19. In one chapter, both of these are found, juxtaposed to each other, the red heifer and the human corpse. And that's exactly how it comes in the Quran. 67, red heifer, and then in 70s, human corpse. They're exactly like how it comes in the book of Numbers, chapter 19. You can't deny this. So this is setting
Daniel,
stage
you're
that this is the
waffling about
exact
some
context.
totally unrelated thing.
Yeah, let's.
It is.
Let's
come on, man.
tie it
You have
to
be
the
only
topic,
prejudiced.
if you could, for the audience of exactly what you're trying to explain with that statement, please.
Sorry, Mike, come again.
If you could maybe try to make it a little more clear for the audience who might not know the context or the source material, things like that. Try to, like, I'm saying this because, and then a little bit more plainly. I think Chris obviously, has been studying up on this and is familiar, but there's some people in the chat that are having a little bit of trouble following exactly the point there. All right.
Okay, I'm just sharing the screen here, right? And you see here,
Daniel, we get this. We know this is the story, and we know you're saying that it's about this story, but you need to show in the Quran how it's referring to this story.
Yeah, exactly. I will show you. So the clarification is here. In the book of Numbers, chapter 19, you have this.
We don't need to see the story now. We know there's a story here.
Wait a second, because people don't know. Just that's what Mike said to me. People don't know. Right? Sure, I will keep it brief. So here comes the red heifer, right? In chapter 19 of the Numbers, red heifer, and then the human corpse. All right. So they both are one single story, the red heifer and the human corpse. And that's exactly how it comes in the Quran too, all right? You have 67, slaughter of a cow, the red heifer, okay? And then 72, right there, the murder of a person, the human corpse. That's how the context is being laid out, exactly like Numbers 19, exactly, okay? And that's where it ends stating, miserable are those who write the scripture with their own hands, because the scribes of Israel, they hid their murder, their crime, and they changed the story to a purification ritual, a inhumane purification ritual. Touching the corpse became sin. But in the Quran, God clarifies that. God says the meat from the red heifer, through a miracle, when touched on the human corpse was resurrected, and he disclosed the murder, which the Jewish scribes wanted to hide, the priests wanted to hide. And this is what the Quran is calling as corruption. Okay? The Quran says this is the corruption that they have written in the scriptures. So that's where 279 comes. All right? And then the Quran says in 280, they assert,
I don't think it's listening.
because we can do whatever and we can get away with it. We can do whatever. We can fabricate the scriptures and we can get away with it. And that's where the Quran says they're asserting the fire will not touch this.
I understand you're trying to read this back in a story. I don't know why it's that story in particular. If you're going to jump back by 10 verses, why can't you jump back 20 verses? I'm giving you the immediate next verse. But I'm interested. This same chapter you're quoting from, which has 279 in it, also goes on in many other places, like 297, 201, and so on and so forth, to say that the Torah is being confirmed. Why would it do that if in the same chapter it said it's been corrupted?
I'm not saying the Torah was corrupted, my dear friend. You got to pay attention. You got to listen better. You got to listen better.
I'm so confused now.
The book was corrupted. The book that the scribes documented is corrupted. I'm not saying the Torah that God gave to Moses was corrupted. Okay.
Okay.
Wait.
Just want to tie it back to the Islamic dilemma specifically. So we got the backstory there on the Book of Numbers, how it's connected to the Jewish tradition. I'm just not seeing how that exactly relates, and I want to have that clarified if we could.
Can I just summarize what's been said here? So basically, I say the Quran confirms the Torah. We'll take the Torah. And while it confirms it in many places, it also contradicts it. I say this is a sign of a human error, so the Quran is not divine. Daniel is saying, well, hang on a second. You have clear verses in the Quran, of which he's given 279, which show corruption of the scribes, and hence you cannot take this Torah in the 7th century as being the full truth of the Torah. It only has some truth in it, but it also has falsehood in it. He then relates this back to about 10 verses prior to 279, where it gives a particular story about the red heifer, and he's trying to say it's in relation to that story. I say no, it's the very next verse, verse 80, and it's because that is the continuation of 79, and that says specifically what they supposedly added, and that's not found in the Torah. So this can't be referring to the Torah.
Okay, Daniel, do you have a response to that?
The response to that is this: what they say is found in the Talmud does not disqualify or discredit what the Quran is talking. The Quran is just asserting very clearly. It says they asserted that the fire will not touch us after having done the corruption in the writings. Okay, so they are corrupting the writings as they wished to hide certain crimes and institute
who
a
was they,
sacrificial system.
if you could clarify?
The scribes of Israel.
Okay.
So the scribes of Israel, they are forging.
Is it all of them or some of them?
Material. Basically, the scribes of Israel.
No, the Quran says
I don't
like
know
some
if
of
it was
them.
90% majority, 95% majority, or 10% minority. I can't really speak for that.
The
It's scribes
text
of
is pretty
Israel
clear.
who are
It's talking
documenting
about
the
some of
scriptures.
them, not all of them.
It's the scribes of Israel who are documenting the scriptures. Okay, let me be precise. So the scribes of Israel are doing a bad job and they're hiding their crimes.
Some of them are.
That's when the Quran says they've done this dirty business, and then the Quran says, and they claim, which can be found in the Talmud, no problems. The Quran doesn't say that this phrase comes from the Pentateuch. It doesn't say that. Okay, it can be preserved in rabbinical literature. No worries. All that the Quran says is they claim that the God will not punish them for that. That's what the claim is that
And
the Quran is highlighting.
the Quran refutes
Okay.
that claim. So, like I said,
yeah,
Jesus had the Torah. So all this corruption is irrelevant anyway.
What do you mean Jesus had the Torah? God
He was
taught
taught
Jesus
the Torah.
Taught, not had.
Yes,
Completely
we've already
different.
clarified this, Daniel. You're being difficult, I
Yeah.
think, intentionally here.
Why
We
do you
already clarified.
emphasize that without making a correction? Amend your statements, please.
I've already said taught. Yeah,
You
taught
said
the
had.
Torah. He
Okay.
was taught the
Taught is
Torah.
good. Taught is
Look,
fine.
when I mean had, I mean in terms of information. He knows the Torah. He was taught it,
Okay.
right? Okay, clarified
Okay.
again for you. So if he
Okay.
has, as in taught, he was taught the Torah, how can the Torah still be corrupted if Isa had it as a prophet at his time?
I'm not saying the Torah is corrupted, my friend.
Okay, the Torah is not
You gotta
corrupted
pay-
then. So the
you gotta
whole thing
listen
you said
better.
about
You gotta
corruption
listen
is
better.
relevant.
The Bible, the Old Testament, the 5 books is not the Torah, my dear friend. What is the Torah? Tell me, what is the Torah?
It was what was revealed to Moses.
That's it. It's not the 5 books of the Old Testament.
Okay, so you're literally saying it's something totally different. Is that your point?
Come again?
Are you saying it's something totally different? It's not Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. It's a totally different thing.
Torah is found in Deuteronomy. It's found, but it's annotated. It's found, it's annotated.
Okay, Daniel, I just looked up, the definition of the Torah, and I just want to give some clarity here that it does list the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible. So when you say it's found in Deuteronomy, I'm interested in maybe getting you to explain that point a little bit for the audience.
Sure.
Briefly, obviously. We
So
only got about 10 minutes left of the open dialogue, and then we'll wrap it up. If you guys want to do some closings, I'm open to it. I don't know what your schedules are like, so I'm trying to be respectful to that.
Yeah, we can do closures as well. I mean, if you want that, that's fine. The word Torah appears in Genesis, and what does that mean? Moses wasn't even existing at that point in time when God was talking to Abraham. So what does the word Torah mean? Scam Shimon was asking me this question in my debate. Okay, that's fine. I won't go and touch that now. But this is what it is. The instruction that comes from Almighty God, that instruction in Hebrew is called as Torah. So when God gave instruction to Abraham, that was Torah for Abraham. But when God gave instruction to Moses, that is the Torah of Moses. Instruction of Moses is what is the Torah, right? It's not the 5 books. The 5 books is a later development. The idea of 5 books becoming the Torah is a later development.
Okay,
Okay,
Chris, go
so-
ahead and give your perspective on that.
Where does the Quran tell us that the Torah is not what the Jews at the time would have understood it to be?
In one of the verses, the Quran clearly says, when it's talking about Jacob and some prohibitions, it says the Torah had not been revealed yet. So when it's talking about Genesis, the Quran very clearly specifies that's not the Torah.
Wait. Sorry, what verse is that?
I don't remember on top of my head.
referring to
Just bear with me. Let me
393?
find it. Let me find it. Bear with me.
Might be 393. But the point is, this is all irrelevant anyway, because the Quran needs to explain this. Because if the Quran's talking in dialogue with Jews, and it's telling them the Torah is from Allah, you have it with you, Muhammad is prophesied in what you have written of it, you should follow the Torah. Why do you come to Muhammad when you have the judgment, the commands of Allah in the Torah? The only way that makes sense is if a Jewish person knows what that Torah is. If it means something different from a Quranic perspective, the Quran has to explain that. Otherwise, Jews have no idea. In fact, not that they have no idea, they're literally misled into thinking it's talking about their books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, when in fact it's talking about something completely different.
That's what I'm telling you. I mean, there's a verse which is
Do you think
chapter
that's what
3,
it's
verse
doing?
93. Sorry?
3 verse 93.
3 verse 93, which clearly says this was before the relays of the Torah of Moses. Okay?
But what can you read
So
the full
now-
verse for me?
All kinds of wholesome provisions were made permissible for the children of Israel, except for the hindquarters which is Jacob himself, had opted not to eat. That was before the relays of the Torah of Moses.
Do you know what that's in reference to?
Yeah, it's in reference to the battle, the MMA battle that Jacob had.
Yeah, in Genesis 32, when
Yeah, that's fine.
he made the hip part prohibited for
Yeah.
him. It's literally a reference to Genesis.
That's
So
what
it
I'm
is
saying.
the Torah.
No, I'm saying that's the clarification. The clarification is that was not Torah. That was not Torah.
He's
the Quran
quoting
says
from the Torah
it
and
was
he's saying that actually
before.
happened.
It was before the
Yes.
relays of the Torah of Moses.
Yes, look, what he's trying to say to you is he's making a
Yeah.
point about the fact that
Yeah.
before the Torah was revealed, this is how it used to
Yeah.
be. And he's
This is
basing
how-
that
yeah,
off
this
of
is how things
Genesis.
happen.
He said,
I'm
because
fired.
Genesis, the Jacob account is before Moses. So he's saying before Moses even got the law, this was the only thing that was prohibited. And it was because Jacob, Israel, prohibited it for himself. Which is a quote from Genesis 32. You've made my point, Daniel. You've just shown me that the
You're not
Quran is
understanding.
aware
You're
of
failing
what the
to
Torah
understand.
is.
What I'm saying, all that I'm saying is Genesis is not the Torah. That's what
But the
Quran
Quran
saying.
is just
Genesis is
quoting
not the
it.
Torah.
Okay, Daniel, what do you think 545 is doing in the Quran? Surah 545. Where it says a life for a life and a tooth for a tooth. What do you think that's referencing?
Torah.
Particularly Deuteronomy and Leviticus. I saw always Exodus and Leviticus, forgive me. But it's quoting books, Daniel, from the from the Torah.
Yeah.
So it proves
So
that
what?
it knows what the Torah is.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not
Okay, so the
denying that.
Quran, the
All
Quran
I'm
is
saying
saying the
Genesis
Torah is
not Torah.
Genesis,
That's all I'm
Exodus,
saying.
Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
Genesis is not Torah. That's what the Quran verse says.
It's
393
quoting
says
from
Genesis
it.
is not Torah.
No, sorry, Daniel, that makes no sense. The Quran is quoting from Genesis.
And it says this was before the relays of Torah, man. It says
Yes,
it
the
was
whole point
before.
is he's saying
Genesis
that
is
there was a
before
period in
Torah,
time
man.
where most foods weren't prohibited. The only thing that was what Jacob prohibited for himself, which you find in Genesis 32.
What is the next statement?
Daniel, I don't
What
know
is
how
the
more
next
clear I can
statement?
make this for you.
What is the next statement? The next statement in the same exact verse is this. This was before Torah.
Because
So
the
Genesis
Torah
is
was
not part
given
of
to
Torah.
Moses. Jacob lived a long
Exactly.
time before Moses.
Exactly.
Daniel,
God did not
this...
give Genesis to
hold on,
Moses.
Chris. Let
This
him
is the presupposition that you
respond.
have.
I don't know.
This is the
how to-
presupposition that you have. God did not give Genesis to Moses. Genesis was the account of the earlier prophets, the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Jacob. It was not about Moses. To Moses, God gave instruction that's preserved in Deuteronomy. That's where Moses' instruction is preserved.
So why is the Quran repeatedly
be-
quoting
let's be clear with
Genesis? It quotes Genesis.
be clear with it.
All the stories of the prophets, as you call them, are found in Genesis. Genesis 37, the
Those are
whole
the
story of
stories of the
Joseph.
patriarchs. Those are the
Genesis
stories of
9, the story of
patriarchs.
Noah.
That's fine. That's not Torah, man.
It's the
Those are the
scrolls of
books of the
Abraham, then.
prophets. Those are the books of the prophets.
Was it given to Abraham?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the Quran
Genesis,
confirms
Genesis,
these things
Genesis.
found in our Torah as the things that were supposedly given to Abraham, which is an error, by the way.
No, you're not understanding.
Wait, hang on a second.
Hold on,
Genesis
Chris.
includes, let me finish.
Let him
Genesis
do a
includes
response.
accounts. Genesis includes accounts of Abraham, which were given to Abraham, accounts of Jacob given to Jacob, accounts of Joseph given to Joseph, accounts of some of the things, the earliest history of Israel, okay? But none of that has to do anything with the Torah of Moses. The Torah of Moses is preserved in Deuteronomy.
Okay, that's crazy, but let's just take that as an example. The Quran clearly referenced that it is aware of at least Deuteronomy, Exodus, and Leviticus. I think that's fair.
We can do a one more question from Daniel if you want, or a statement that Chris can respond to, and then we'll go ahead and if you want, we'll do like a 3 to 5 minute closing if you'd like. And then guys, get your super chats in. We're about to start asking them here in a second. I know we got a couple already. $2 and up, we'll read them all, and then at the end, if they have like an extra 5 minutes, I'll read some of the regular chat.
So I think on the account of this particular presentation here, I think I made it explicitly clear the context of 279 as comes in Numbers 19 and the parallel story in the Quran from 67 onwards, 267 onwards. I think if any fair-minded person pays attention to this, I think they would concede the Quran is talking about this exact corruption in the book of Numbers 19, right? So would you agree, Chris, that the biblical preservation has been inadequate?
If the biblical If the biblical text has been corrupted in any way, then the Quran is wrong.
Because the Quran
which is why
says
this
it
is
is corrupted.
relevant. No, it
It's
never
not
does.
wrong.
You even agreed to me it doesn't say it's
The
corrupted.
Quran
You
would
kind
be
of just say
wrong
it's referring
if
to.
it said the Bible is not corrupted. The Quran would then be wrong. When the Quran clearly points out the corruption, why is it wrong?
Well, the Quran
It's
says that
precise.
our scriptures are preserved and authoritative. So
That's
in your view,
that's
your
an
own Quran is
incorrect
wrong.
premise. That's an incorrect premise.
I
with
showed
which you come.
17
That premise
verses.
is
You showed
incorrect.
one, and I refuted
premise
that one
is
verse. Oh. Is he died? Hello?
Hey, Daniel, you froze, buddy. Let's see. It's a interesting spot to freeze on. But let's see. You can maybe rejoin. Okay, I think maybe he's back in. Oh, sorry, guys. What that last, were you responding to him in the middle of that, or was he responding to you?
I don't even remember. To be honest,
If you want to go ahead and do like a quick 3-5 minute close, I thought he was going to go into that first, perhaps there, since you opened it. But yeah, that was only about a minute and a half on his end. So if he really wants to, when he comes back in, if he comes back in, then we can do that. I just don't know why. Is he back?
Allah has struck down his internet connection for the absolutely insane things he was saying about the Quran and the Bible.
We'll go ahead and do a quick little closing statement for the audience here, and then we'll see if he pops back in.
Yeah, sure. As a final kind of summary to Daniel's position, I don't think it's really coherent. He's basically saying, well, we can solve the Islamic dilemma, the fact that the Quran specifically confirms the Torah and Gospel by name many, many times throughout, and in very general, broad, in a very general and broad sense. It isn't just looking at specifics, it's looking at the whole thing. It does this over and over again. But it also contradicts that very same Torah and Gospel in many passages, and hence is incoherent, and hence Islam is false. His way of dealing with this is going to one single verse, which is 279, and then arguing that no, this is not about the Torah, it's not about the Talmud, it's about a very particular story in Numbers, because if you go 12 verses before 79, that was the last thing that was talked about, which is just not, that's not a good metric. That's eisegesis and to be honest with you, desperation. Verse 80 clearly continues from verse 79, but he refuses to read it. I'm the one looking at context, Daniel isn't. And he somehow thinks that once we've established this, we can then be like, aha, the Quran is definitely saying that the scriptures are corrupted.
Fix this.
But they clearly don't. Daniel has failed to show that. And then he's just gone on to some weird understandings about what the Torah has in it, despite the fact the Quran repeatedly quotes the Torah and also talks to Jews about the Torah. If the Quran is talking to the Jews about the Torah, they better share the same understanding of that Torah, whereas Daniel thinks it has some magical this bit, but not this bit, but not this bit, which is totally foreign concept to the Jews in the 7th century. So in summary, the Islamic dilemma passes, and Daniel has been unable to solve anything. I've just noticed you're like moving the camera around. Oh, yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
welcome back.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
Chat was going crazy.
Is it all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems fine.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, might be on my side, I suppose. Got off the internet for some reason.
Okay. Chris, were you at the end of your?
Yeah, that was my statement. I don't know if I'm happy for Daniel just to give his closing statement now.
Yeah, and then we'll get into the Q&A, which, guys, get your super chats in. Get your tickets to DebateCon 8. Like the video. Subscribe if you were rated over to this from one of the other people who came in with their followings. We really appreciate you guys. W in the chat for the debaters getting out here and getting in front of everybody. Awesome. Okay, well, go ahead, Daniel. You got 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get into some Q&As. Appreciate you coming back.
All right, thank you so much, guys. I'm sorry about falling out of the internet. So the closure is this. I think the Quran is pretty clear when it says it confirms the scriptures that God gave to the prophets, very clear, and requires us to believe in them. And those scriptures are found in the documentation in what we call as the Bible. The Torah is found in it, the Injil is found in it. But how do we discern what it is? The Quran says Muhaiminan alay. The Quran posits itself as Muhaiminan alay, the guardian scripture that guards what is truth from corruption. So in reference to the Quran, you can pick out what is the corruption in the Bible. Okay. Now, the Quran could be absolutely in trouble, and the dilemma would stand if the Quran had said all of the Bible was the truth. That would be a problem for the Quran. And rightly so, the Quran never says that. The Quran clearly says there has been corruption and identifies the corruption, okay? And clearly says these scriptures, the Old Testament and the New Testament, have been rendered in dependent literary models of the Greco-Roman world. And we know how Septuagint came along as a project that the Greeks organized for the Library of Alexandria. So the Jewish scribes, the 70 of them, when they were rendering the scriptures, they rendered it basically borrowing the Greek literary model. And that's exactly what happened to even to the New Testament. So the Quran is precise when it is polemicizing what has happened to the scriptures of the past. Okay, and it says the corruption, calls it out, shows the stories, and we see those parallels in the Old Testament. And why do you think Quran is in trouble because of this? When it's speaking the truth, you must be prejudiced to see any other perspective into it. The Quran is crystal clear. It confirms the truth, calls a spade, calls off the corruption, and authoritatively, chapter 5, it says the law, the criminal law, the judicial law, the social judicial law must be followed in order for the Jews to get salvation and for the Christians to get salvation. So they have to observe the law. So that's what the Quran says in chapter 5. You have no standing unless you've established the obedience that is required of you from the scriptures. So is the obedience in the scriptures found? Yes, it is found. In Deuteronomy, it's very clear what sort of obedience God is requiring of you. Okay. And in the teachings of Christ, in the Injil, Jesus clearly specifies amendments. All right. So those are the amendments that you have to follow in order for your soteriology, for your salvation. So Jews have to follow what is found in the Deuteronomy. You have to follow what's found in Deuteronomy as well as in some of the amendments that Jesus gave. Until you do that, there is no salvation for you guys. All right. So that's my conclusion. Thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate you getting that out there. We definitely have some chats that we can go through here and, get both of your perspectives on them if it applies. So we will start with Bless My Vibe code for $10. Appreciate your support. Says, we just went to the moon. No God in sight. Why are we still pretending primitive human writings when we had no science is real? It's the ultimate self-cuckery. Full-grown men buy into it, which is scary. I do believe that is to both of you guys. If you want to answer first, Chris.
I don't think that deserves a response. In all honesty, just the wafflings of some new atheist. I'm not interested in that.
Bless My Vibe code sounds a little new age to me. Maybe they can give another super chat of what they believe, and then we can discuss that. Next one, or Daniel, did you want to say the same thing there? Okay.
No, I just want to give a response to that.
Okay, go ahead.
And that is this. Look, God has done this favor time and again through the prophets of Israel. And the prophets of Israel, the scholars of Israel, the doctors of Israel were charged with the duty of preserving the scriptures, which they failed. And therefore, after having all of that happen in Israel, God took it up to himself to issue the Quran. And he said, I'm going to preserve it. All right. So the preservation of the Quran is now on God himself. And that's exactly what we find. 1400 years of the Quran, nothing like it. Nothing like it. There's no other claim that stands shoulder to the Quran. Okay. It's unique. And the documentation is pristine. And the information is unparalleled, unchallenged. The Quran says no falsehood comes in any direction making it successful approach to the Quran. No falsehood come into it. All right. So some of my books enumerate the sciences of the Quran. I've written 2 books on science, Ancient Astronomy, Allah's Narrative, and then Creation of Planet Earth and Origins of Life, Allah's Narrative. These are worth looking into. My books are found on Amazon. So if you have time, have a look into it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that response. Someone in the comments said Indigo Child Super Chat. That was funny. All right. Get some questions in, guys. We're going on to the next one. Elijah, okay, this isn't really a question, but Elijah Kinney for $5 says, just when I thought there was no one worse at debate than Nadir and Junior. I think Nadir's on later tonight, guys. You can go get involved with him, ask him some questions. He might be trying something new. Who knows? We're doing a call-in show, actually, so we are trying something new. We've never done that before. We'll have John Steele, I believe, and Nadir. And so John Steele's the Christian. He's going to be taking calls from Muslims. And then Nadir's obviously Muslim. He's going to be taking calls from Christians. We're going to kind of go back and forth like that. Kind of a new format. So come back later tonight, guys. And if you would like, you can email me. And I'm going to put it in the chat from my other channel. And I'll send you the Zoom link if you are wanting to get in on that call. Okay, since that one wasn't really a question, I'm going to move on. Unless someone wants to say something.
No.
All right. Soldier of Christ 1972 for $5 says, Q, denial. Were Jesus' disciples Muslims? did they have the Injil, Quran 7:157? Were they preaching Jesus' crucifixion instead of denying it? Thank you for your super chat.
So I'd like to jump in and just add a little bit to that because that's a really sore topic for anyone who denies the crucifixion, because you would also have to believe, because the Quran says in many places, 61:14, 355, that Isa's disciples were Muslim and they submitted to Allah, and yet they took the teachings of Isa and basically perverted them. And you'd have to believe this because the earliest manuscripts we have and the general timeline of when the revelation was written down, according to scholarship, is fairly early, a matter of decades after Jesus' death. So you have to basically say his disciples were unable to continue preaching Isa's message properly, and instead they introduced falsehood into it, and presumably they did that deliberately. This kind of makes Isa a failed prophet because his message basically fails immediately, or at least within a few decades anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't say that if I was a Muslim.
All right, Daniel, go ahead, give your response.
Yeah, look, the Quran never accuses disciples of forgery or fraudulently writing the scriptures. It never does that. In fact, what the Quran does say in the same surah 61, you would be surprised, is it says to the Muslims, be like the disciples of Christ. Okay, kunu. It says kunu lil hawariina. I mean, if I'm getting that correct, let me just find the verse here to be fair to the verse. 61:12. I think it's 61:14. It says kunu ansar Allahi. Okay, I was wrong in misquoting it. It says kunu ansar Allahi, be like the helpers of Christ, like the disciples of Christ. Kama qala Isa ibn Maryam, like Jesus, the son of Mary, said, lil hawariina, to his disciples, man ansari ilallah, who are my helpers. Qala al hawariyuna, the disciples responded, nahnu ansarullah, they are the helpers of Allah. Okay. Now, in fact, the Quran would like the Muslims to be like the disciples of Christ. Then the Quran never disrespects the disciples. Okay, get that from me. But what has really happened is this. What has really happened is this. Paul himself does not write about crucifixion. What he says, what his books in 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians, it's the dogma. He never gives biographical information about the crucifixion of Christ. I recently had a debate on crucifixion. It's on my channel with a guy called Eric Kaffer.
Let's try to wrap it up a little bit. We do have more questions to get to. I'll give you another like 15 seconds. You want to get to the end of that, or I don't know how much time you think you need.
I really want to just ask him something.
Yeah.
Look, all I'm saying, Daniel, is the point is that Jesus' disciples, according to this corruption narrative, would not have been preaching the actual Injil. It gets corrupted, right? That's the point. So although the Quran says they were real, proper disciples of him, your narrative goes against that, and it makes the disciples and Isa himself failed communicators.
It does not.
That's the point.
It does not.
That's the point you should address.
In fact, the Quran says the disciples did a wonderful job, and God gave success to them, and they prevailed. Okay, and the corruption that does come out is post 70 AD, when the Jews have been destroyed. All right. So the Second Temple destruction, curse that was fulfilled. All right.
So the corrupted version actually comes before the uncorrupted version is written. Is that what you're really saying?
No, the Injil that's written in the scriptures, all sorts of, even Johannine scribes, they're warning people of corruption, people corrupting scriptures, right? So the scribes were very much aware, self-aware of corruption taking place. So the message of Isa is preserved, and there is corruptions added to it by the later Greco-Roman scribes.
Okay, well, we do have other super chats to get to. I'm sure we can circle back if another question touches on that. Right, so we got James 219 Apologetics for $10 says, Daniel, you said the Injil is Christ's words. Was Jesus wrong when he prophesied his own death in Matthew 16:21 through 23? If so, does that mean the Quran is wrong when it says Jesus is a prophet in 1930? verse 30.
Should I go first?
That was
Yeah.
directed at you, so yeah, go ahead. And
Yeah,
then
okay,
Chris
okay.
can still respond if
Okay,
he wants.
look, the topic again is now, even the questioners, they're not interested about Islamic dilemma. Apparently, maybe they are not fully aware of what this dilemma is
I don't think you are,
or how to
Daniel.
establish it. Okay, nonetheless, the question is this. Christ did prophesy about his death, all right? But there is a parallel account in John's gospel where John's gospel does not document that. John's gospel just says, I will go and you will not know where I'm going. Okay? But you have some gospel writers annotate and elaborate it from to be able to justify the passion narrative. So there are some insertions, annotations into the text, which says Jesus is going to die and be resurrected after 3 days. Even the sign that Jesus gives, the 3 days sign. The first account appears as a sign will be given, and then it's the sign of Jonah will be given, and then the sign of Jonah develops into a 3-day death and coming back. So there's a slow and gradual development of the story, the passion narrative, okay? Which, if you read the Gospel of John, straight away you can dismiss it because Jesus is clearly, I'm going to a place you wouldn't even know where I'm going, okay? So he does not talk about coming back after 3 days, right? So.
Okay, I have no idea what that has to do with anything. First of all, there's no problem with the gospel account not mentioning a thing. They don't need to all mention the same thing. That's just how humans work. But I mean, the point is this, Daniel. Christ clearly in the gospel accounts prophesied his own death, right? But if the Quran then says, look, there are prophecies in the Injil, Jesus' words, that you should follow, why is it that you're now saying, well, it means the ones about Muhammad, it doesn't mean the ones about Jesus' death? You're now picking and choosing. And again, that's not in the Quran. The Quran never says that. The Quran says, hey, you guys stand on nothing unless you follow the Torah and the Gospel. You guys ought to judge by the Gospel. There is no single verse in the Quran that says that the Gospel has been corrupted at all, and yet you're picking and choosing. And the Quran even condemns picking and choosing in 285 and 691. You have nothing here, like absolutely nothing. You're taking the Quran and you're making it in your own image.
So those just to add a little point there.
Yeah, brief response and then we'll move on.
Those are judicial judgments and not theological judgments. The Quran never recommends getting theology, sort of confirming theology
Yes, it
of
does.
the Christian elaboration. It only
Yes, it
confirms
does.
in chapter 5. It only says you've got to judge people's disputes according to what is laid out in the Torah and in the Injil. Judge people's disputes, and those disputes are not theological in nature, right?
Chapter 569 says actually no, Christians and Jews can attain heaven, and it gives a criteria of if they believe in Allah, they believe in the last day, and they do righteous acts. That again is paralleled in 262. So no, theology, particularly in regards to salvific theology, is found in the Quran, and that is pointing to the Gospel and Torah.
But that's different. It's not Christology. It's not passion narrative.
It doesn't matter. It's theology.
It's belief in the Shema.
Wait. But doesn't the Gospel say that Jesus is the Son of the Father? Doesn't he raise Jesus to the point where he is not merely a prophet, but rather he's pre-existent? He is incarnate.
Almost all accounts of the Synoptic Gospels, Jesus calls himself the Son of Man. Never once he calls himself the Son of God. Synoptic Gospels. Never once in Synoptic Gospels. Never once he calls himself the Son of God.
He's
all
literally introduced in that title in Mark 1:1.
Synoptic Gospels, he calls himself the Son of Man.
Son of Man is even more higher Christology than Son of God. Son of Man is a reference to Daniel 3. You don't know this. Daniel 7, 13 or 14? The Son of Man that appears to the Ancient of Days.
Even Muhammad is called the Son of Man in the Quran.
Then the Quran is calling him God then.
No, it's not. You don't understand. You don't understand that.
Daniel 7:13 is a prophetic vision. Yes. You mean the Ancient of Days, the Son of Man, the one who is like a Son of Man, who approaches the Ancient of Days, and he gets an eternal kingdom. He's elevated to the status of God. This is a Second Temple passage that the Jews at the time debated about. Because
this would be a good separate debate topic, for sure.
Yeah, let's have a debate on
that. Because I'm sure that could spiral into a lot of fun things. All right, next one, and this is probably when you were talking about a specific text. It may have been the Injil, I'm not sure, or it could have been something in the Quran. But Phil F17 F716 for $2 says, lol, that's a blatant misunderstanding of the text. And yeah, it's just there's not really a lot of context for that since we don't read them at the exact moment that they come in. But
Yeah, I can't.
yeah,
I can't.
it is
I don't
what
know
it
what it's in
is.
reference to.
It is what it is. We're in the Q&A, folks. Send in some questions if you got them, and we will read them. All right. Oh, yeah, he did actually send another one for $10. Thank you, Phil F716. He said, we've now reverted to lying. The Torah is the 5 books of Moses. Daniel had a Freudian slip. He even started saying it's the 5 books of the 5 books of the Torah. Laughing emojis.
Yeah, the Jews would have understood it to be the 5 books of the Torah. So the idea that the Quran is referring to something else, it's a non sequitur. It doesn't even begin to make sense. The Jews wouldn't have understood it that way, so the Quran would have had to elaborate. But the Quran doesn't elaborate, so it must refer to what the Jews understood the Torah to be in the 7th century.
Well, it doesn't really apply. It doesn't really follow through like that. Okay, whenever the Quran makes a confirmation about the instruction given to Moses, it's very specific, given to Moses. All right, and that's where I quoted 393. Clearly specifies this happened before the Torah of Moses.
In Genesis.
So the Quran is very clear in identifying what Torah is. The Torah of Moses is the instruction that God gave to Moses. God gave instructions to other prophets as well, to Abraham and to the patriarchs Jacob, Joseph, but those are their stories. But the instruction that God gave Moses on the mountain is his instruction. That is his Torah. And that applies because even Jesus makes reference to that. The prophets and the law, he says, the law and the prophets. So the law is in reference to the Torah of Moses. And the prophets are prophets. So even Jesus makes that, deciphers it for you guys. All right. If you're not happy with the Quran, at least go with Jesus.
Okay, thank you for that response. All right, next super chat is from Pol2739. He sent 15. I'm not sure what that is. It's a weird symbol that I have never seen before to denote a currency. It's like two spirals or something. Anyways, question related to the dilemma by correlation. Deuteronomy 16:22 commands, quote, do not erect a sacred stone, for these the Lord your God hates. Kaaba. I don't know it. Kaaba. Is that the name of the...
I'm guessing it's pointing out the Kaaba in Islam seems to be a violation of what's mentioned in Deuteronomy.
I see.
I mean, there's many contradictions. Like I went through some of them, but
if I need to answer that, it's not a contradiction. It's basically misunderstanding. It's basically borrowing of the Jewish legends into Islam through the Hadith literature. Okay, the Kaaba in Mecca, there is nothing sacred about that stone. The only prominence that the stone has was the first stone. In the Eastern cultures, when you build a building, we know the concept of cornerstone, right? Even in the Bible, the concept does come. Cornerstone means the first stone that's laid on which the building is built. So that's the significance of that stone in Kaaba, because Abraham laid its foundations. So that stone becomes important. It's all the legends surrounding that stone of forgiveness basically are Jewish legends coming off the misunderstanding of some of the passages of Isaiah of how a coal would forgive sins if you touch it. So those legends got distilled into early Islam through those Judeo-Christian channels when those people converted into Muslim people, and they just wrote some hadiths about it. And that's not what the Kaaba is all about, okay, to be honest with you. Even if you remove that stone from the Kaaba, which is identified as the cornerstone, which probably Abraham laid out, even if you remove it, that does not reduce the sacredness of the site. The site is sacred because Abraham built that house for the worship of one God. Okay? It's not as you think it is. There's no forgiveness attached to touching the stone. That's all Jewish legends that got distilled into early Islam.
All right. So we have now Robin Webster, 1968, for $2 says, looking very sharp, my friend. I'm going to go ahead and say that's for all three of us.
Nah, that's for Daniel. Daniel, clearly. He's the most sharp dressed here.
I definitely did not put a tie on today, so I'm gonna give him that.
Well, I got to
Right.
tell you one thing. I did happen to browse through Chris's channel, and I found Chris a gentleman in Christian apologetics. Basically, I've seen a lot of Christian apologetics, but I found Chris to be a person that I can really engage with and discuss the subject at great length. So that's a compliment.
Thank you, Daniel.
Awesome. Good to see some respect held back and forth there. And there's always a bit of respect that you got to give for just showing up and putting your worldview out there. So that goes out to both of you. Giant Meteor for $10 says, Daniel, are you aware that the word Torah is not used univocally in Hebrew and never has? It means law, referring both to the commands given to Moses and to those 5 books which contain them.
Yeah, thank you for the question. In fact, post Moses, the narrative basically develops from there on, with the prophets coming later to Moses, identifying Moses' instruction in specific. They say the phraseology goes like this: the law of Moses, the instruction of Moses. Now they're getting very specific, even though I can clearly identify, as you rightly said, even Genesis, the instruction given to Abraham, does use the word Torah. Okay. It was Torah of Abraham, instruction given to Abraham. But what happens in early Israel, First Temple Israel period, is this. First Temple period Israel identifies the Torah of Moses as the instruction, as the primary reference to observe the law of God, right? So that's where this connotation develops, which even Jesus makes a reference to, the law and the prophets. So by law, he's referring to the law of Moses. And he says the rest of it is the prophets. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I need to say much, but that's just wrong. I don't have much more to say. I think people can see for themselves.
That's fair. You don't got to respond to all of them if you don't want to. Short and sweet. Okay, Iron Zealot, Mike, your microphone joke, lol. Yeah, don't be an audio troll, please. I get anxiety if that's all you guys do all the time. But I won't be triggered like that. Not anymore. Okay, Timothy 46:41 for $5 says, if Islam was true, why would God trick everyone and wait 600 years before correcting it with a warmonger? Did Allah take a snooze?
All right, Daniel, answer that one.
Well, look, the God of the heaven does take some gigantic gaps, right? Do you want to call that snooze and kind of respond to my initial presentation of how he snoozed on the mountaintop? Well, that's unfair. Basically, we do have in the Bible, in the biblical history, what is called as the intertestamental period. Basically, after Malachi, there's no prophet up until John the Baptist shows up, right? And his dad Zechariah and John the Baptist. I know not so much Zechariah in the Bible, but in the Quran, yes, Prophet Zechariah and his son John the Baptist, and Jesus comes along as a contemporary of them, right? So there is a gap, 430 years. The same jibe would apply. Was God snoozing?
I think it's
Like,
particularly in
you know what I
reference
mean?
to the fact that Allah allowed the early Christian community to think that Christ was crucified and hence form the largest religion in the world today because of that deception. Why would Allah wait 600 years to clarify when, as an all knowing God, he would know the consequences would be dire? That's what I think is in
Well,
reference to.
I get that. I get that. The instruction is pretty clear. Salvific doctrine got it was a legendary elaboration. But even if you read James, any sane person, any sane-minded Christian, if he just reads the letter of James, it's a works-based model. Jesus' own parables. He says, "I will give you one bag of talents. If you don't invest it in the kingdom for the glory of the kingdom of God, it'll be taken away from you, and you will be kicked out of the kingdom of God and burnt in hell. But those who invest these talents for the glory of God's kingdom will be rewarded even further." So Christianity is not a grace-based model. It's a works-based model. Okay. So there is enough instruction for you guys to work. I mean, to get the light, the enlightenment and guidance, God is not fooling around here, right? The instruction is pretty clear.
Like, okay, all right. What's IDR? Oh, nice.
What's the question even? I didn't get it. I'm sorry. Okay. Right. Okay. It was a jab. Right. Jab. People are throwing jab. All right.
Oh no, I was muted. Let me read it again, guys. I'm sorry. Billy Moses sent 20,000 IDR, which is roughly $1.19 back, or USD when you convert it. It says, please accept my jizya. Jeez. Oh man. Rookie mistake. My mic is not off anymore. Stop. I see you guys. All right. Soldier of Christ 1972 says, denial has spoken. Let's do an experiment. If I write something on paper and say Jesus is God and claim it to be Quran, is Quran now corrupted?
That's to you, Daniel.
If Jesus, I mean, if someone writes Jesus as God and claims that to be Quran, is Quran corrupted? I don't really get the question, but I'll try my best to answer. Okay. Well, people can make a lot of different claims. People can produce a lot of different writings. Okay, but there is objective evidence of what the Quran is. Okay, and even if you go back to the Bible and do a critical study of the writings, we can do the truth finding. The fact finding can be done very easily. Okay, it's very easy, and with the assistance of the Quran, it's even further easy. So the secular scholars do this all the time. Okay, so we can do fact finding because we have faculties that are powerful faculties. We are highly intelligible species. We can do this. We are capable of doing this. All right. So fact finding is not at all a hiccup. If you're really serious about it, if you're sincere about it, you can do and study these scriptures and fact find the information that's truth from the forgeries. Okay. So people asserting, well, they're free to do, but that doesn't really change the facts on the ground. So
Just to add, the answer is obviously no. Someone who takes the Quran, a single copy, and adds Jesus is God, for example, has not corrupted the Quran. That would be strange. That would be asinine, to be honest with you. That's clearly not enough to warrant corruption. And this is a big problem for people like Daniel who advocate for corruption, is that they need to explain how such a thing is universally possible. And I don't think they have a way of accounting for that.
if I can have my last word, I can just say 15 seconds, under 15 seconds.
Yeah, for sure.
The first time when the scribes in Israel are writing down the scriptures, they're corrupting it right then and there. And these writings are holy texts. So the corruption is induced from the get-go, and these are the holy texts. So that's when the Quran does polemics of it.
But the Quran confirms it in the same chapter.
The Quran confirms the truth thereof.
Never
the
says
revelation.
that. It just says it confirms it.
It confirms, I mean, when it says it confirms the truth thereof, because it calls out in 279 the corruption.
Daniel, if I told you,
you always got to consider that. You always got to consider that. It's calling out the corruption.
All right. If I told you I confirm the Quran, are you telling me there's and I don't say anything else, are you telling me there's a reasonable way you could interpret that to mean I'm only talking about some of the Quran?
Because the Quran never says it confirms the Bible as a whole. It never says that.
No. But again, this is how language works. If I tell you, I meet you, I'm a complete stranger, and I say, hello, Daniel, I believe in the Quran, and I don't say anything more, are you telling me that the appropriate way of interpreting that is Chris believes in some of the Quran, but rejects others.
Well, we have to really launch an investigation of what really he meant. Okay.
No,
But
Daniel.
the
You
thing
know
is
as well as
this.
I know, in normal speech,
Yeah.
that means, without me qualifying, that means I believe in the whole of the Quran. That is how
Yeah,
it's
fine.
understood. You
That's
know that.
fine.
You know
So
that in
what's the
every
parallel?
sense. The
So
parallel
what's
is the
the
Quran.
parallel?
The Quran, in all the 17 verses where it says confirm, never says confirms the truth thereof. It never says confirms a little bit or some of or most of. It says the Quran is sent to Muhammad, so, confirming that which you have with you. That's it.
There is a context to that. Okay. There's a
Context
what
Yeah,
is where the
specific
gospel
words
are
are you
told.
yeah.
talking about? What
Keep
specific words are
this.
you talking about?
Let's keep this back and forth a little shorter if we can. We got a couple more to get to, so we can wrap it up here. But we're always happy to have you guys back on. And once again, this is why audio trolls are not great, because I saw people saying muted. I was like, oh, they're just trolling me because I said not to troll me, and so I didn't even look over at it. But I'm gonna just not even pay attention to the audio comments anymore, guys. I'm just gonna stay on my grind. It is not my first day on the job, Mike. Other Mike. Thought you'd have more respect for another Mike. Anyways, next comment here, unless you all want to finish that up real quick.
Yeah, just have a last word here. The Quran calls out the corruption, identifies what that corruption is, just like I demonstrated, and the rest is confirmed. So it's clearly identifying what corruption is, and it says the rest is
Wait,
sound
so are you
guidance
saying the
from
only
my command.
corruption is in numbers in that particular story?
The themes that come in that story, the themes,
What themes?
sacrificial system, the rituals that were not
But you
instituted
you
by
won't
God.
you don't get that just from a corruption of a story. If a story is
The,
corrupted, it's just
I,
that story. Then the only thing that's corrupted is that story.
what I did do in my presentation is I gave you one example, but there is a
Wait.
lot
So
more that we can identify.
279 is not just referring to the story in numbers. That is like 12 verses
279,
before it. It's other things.
no, 279 is exactly referring to that particular story, 100%.
So how do you
Okay,
know it's not just that
because that's
story
what the
that's
context
corrupted
is.
then?
But now, when we read the scriptures, the Bible for myself, when I'm reading it, I'm able to identify the forgeries of the scribes.
So how do you know the author of the Quran didn't just think that that single story was the thing corrupted, but everything else was totally fine? Hence why he says,
No,
I confirm this, I confirm this, I confirm this again and again.
the clarification just not comes there in that particular passage, but a lot of different places.
Can
Okay,
you
a
name
lot
me
of different
some?
places. And for example, I gave you this, where the Quran clearly says a blanket statement. It says they rendered the scriptures using the literary
Never
models of the
says the word
disbelievers in the
scripture.
past.
Never says that. It says what they say with their own mouths. So again, you're taking
Okay,
what some people say and you're trying to say that must be the scriptures. That's in error. People can say all sorts of things that aren't in the scriptures.
okay, I can grant you there. But what the essence of that particular verse is this. The essence is this, that the literary dependent models were selected, all right, to render the scriptures. I mean, that's the thing that you can't really escape, because Yudahiuna communicates that. Yudahiuna communicates a literary
None,
dependent model being used in
none of the
930.
scholars of Arabic who
Yeah,
translate that 930 translate it the way
yeah.
you're saying it right now. Not a single one. And if I look at a transliteration, a direct transliteration of the Arabic, never says scriptures. But it does say what they say with their mouths.
Well, I can grant you textually, scriptures is not being used in that particular verse, but
Yeah, well then.
yudahiuna is a very unique word, which
All right,
directly
last
infers
sentence here.
borrowing literary models from the prevailing cultures. All right,
Okay,
this is
I
pretty clear.
just want to say to GB Vowel, Mike, why you keep asking them to wrap up quickly. Because the original format of the debate is 2 10-minute openings, an hour dialogue, and a 30-minute Q&A. And I am very generous with my time if the debaters have it, and I always let people go a little extra. But I do have another debate tonight that we're doing, the call-in show, so I want a little bit of time to get some stuff done at home. So that's kind of partly why I'm not going to go for another 4 hours like with Brian Shapiro the other day.
I would just like to close, Mike. I would like to close with one verse which might really assist.
Yeah, well, we have a couple more comments. We're almost done. Or do you want to say that in relation to that?
I just want to say this.
Oh, okay.
Now,
Go ahead. I'll get the next one ready.
So there's a verse in chapter 6, verse number 91. It reads like this. Indeed, they have failed to give God the honor and reverence he deserves when they claim that God has not communicated with any human being through divine cables. O Muhammad, ask them who wired the cables given to Moses, a book that served as a source of light and guidance for the people, yet you fragmented it, selectively proclaiming certain parts and concealing the rest of the bulk. And you were taught new knowledge that was never known to you and your ancestors. Say it is God, then leave them to waffle around as they indulge in their amusements. So the Quran does point out that they fragmented the instruction that was given to Moses and selectively hid certain parts and revealed certain parts. Okay, there is a verse, 691.
That is true. That's one of the verses I use to show that the Quran denies partiality among the scriptures. You have to believe in, confirm the whole scriptures, not just parts of it. I mean, Daniel, is this contemporary? Is this something Muhammad is being told to say?
Sorry, I didn't get you. I'm sorry.
So in 691, is there an instruction to Muhammad to say something?
Yeah, that's correct.
So this isn't in the past before Muhammad. This is at Muhammad's time.
Yeah, Prophet Muhammad is being given this information to announce it.
So he's telling the Jews that you guys make the book of Moses into parts. Or into parchment.
No, that's not what it's telling. It's telling this is what has happened with the Jewish people in the past. So it was not contemporary to Prophet Muhammad.
It's talking to Jews at Muhammad's time.
That's fine. It can talk. It can talk to the audience, Jewish audience at Muhammad's time. That's fine.
Right. So Muhammad is telling Jews at his time in 7th century Arabia, in the Hijaz, you guys make the book of Moses into parts. Don't do that. So, in other words, the book of Moses, the Torah, is a preserved book at the time of Muhammad that's also authoritative. And since it's the book of Moses, which was given by Allah, it's also inspired. Stop taking it into parts. That's backing up my entire point. You've just demonstrated it's preserved, inspired, and authoritative.
It's not backing up anything that you want to see that happen, right? So basically, this verse is communicating to the polytheists in Medina. Polytheists in Medina are being addressed, okay? It says, you have not honored God as you should pay honor to him, especially when you claim that God does not communicate to a human prophet, okay? So the Quran is talking to the polytheists of Medina here, right? And then it says, if that was the case, if what you assert is true, that God never spoke to any human being, then you know from your fellow Madinites, the fellow Jewish people who reside with you, that they carry the instruction of Moses that's come from God. A similar claim. You're aware of it. So the Quran says, then who do you think gave the instruction to Moses? Which the Jewish people, the Quran then asserts, fragmented. So it's not that something that the Jewish people were doing then, it was something that they have always done. Okay, thank you.
No, I'm sorry. That's not correct. That's just not how the verse reads. It's not how it's translated. It says, you Jews make it into pages, disclosing some of it and concealing much. It's a contemporary thing.
If you want to rely on some English rendering, then
all of them
obviously limited. If you're limited, but if you want to study the substance of the verse, then you will have some clarity of mind.
All those who study the Arabic translate it the way I am reading it.
I'm giving you guys a little bit of extra time. Sorry to interrupt. I was giving you guys a little bit of extra time there because I'm about to put some text up on the screen. People interested in the call-in show later tonight, this is going to be the email that you can email. But go ahead and finish that while I get this going. Sorry.
Yeah, Daniel, it's very clear that it's talking about the Jews contemporary at Muhammad's time. They make it into pages, and they conceal it. How do you conceal something you don't have? And what is this in reference to? The Book of Moses. They are concealing the Book of Moses. So what does that mean? The Book of Moses is from Allah, so it's inspired. It's with them in the 7th century at Muhammad's time, so it's preserved. And it's authoritative because how dare you make it into parts? You're meant to follow all of it.
So basically, the understanding that you have is you are basing it off with a physical copy of the instruction,
Why
Never
is
said
he
it.
which
so
is not the
big?
case, which is not the case, which is not the case. When the Quran says تجعلونه قراطيس تبدونها وتخفون كثير, when it says that, it says you rendered the instruction into fragmentation, and you preserved some and you hid some. Okay,
Right, so it's
it says
preserved, like
you
it's
hid
there
much.
then.
You hid much. God says you hid much and you preserved some. Right?
So it's around in the 7th century for them to conceal some of it, right?
No, it's talking about the past. They've hid a lot
No,
in
it
the
does.
past.
That's
That's what
not
it
the
says.
context of it. No, it isn't. It's translated
That
very clearly into the present tense. Not only
it
that, but the word that means pages is more direct transliteration is parchment. So it is
the
actually
thing is,
probably talking about what's written.
it could not say what you mean it says, because the codex existed as a fuller copy by then. This Codex Sinaiticus, I think, existed, and even Vaticanus existed by then, by 7th century. Okay, so it couldn't really be what you want that to sound like. But what I am actually trying to explain to you makes perfect sense, because historically speaking, the Jewish scribes have hidden a lot that was the truth, and they've completely fabricated a new story, and that's exactly what the Quran is polemicizing here.
Yeah, that's just wrong. The verse is clearly saying
You want that
Muhammad
to
is
be
being.
wrong. I can't help
No,
it.
I'm just reading it as it's meant to be written. Muhammad
It
is
could
being
not be the
told
case, because the
that
codexes existed. The Codex Vaticanus existed by then. The Codex Sinaiticus existed
how
by
that
then. It
helps me. How
couldn't
does that
be
help
what you're
you?
trying to tell me.
How does Codex Vaticanus Sinaiticus, how do they help you?
If that fuller book exists,
Right?
so the claim that you're hiding some and you're revealing some would not apply,
Why?
because the codex exists for
Yeah, but
everyone to
Daniel,
go and
you
refer to.
understand that there's multiple copies of the Torah, right? The
You're not
Jews
getting my
can
point.
literally have a Torah
If the
copy,
codex
and they
if the
change.
codex exists, Chris, if the codex exists in some library, people can go and verify. Nothing is
You
hidden
can't you
because the
can't
codex
verify it
exists.
if you're in 7th century Arabia and you're illiterate. How does
That's
that work?
fine. What I'm saying is, the blanket sort of conclusion drawn out of this is, the book as a copy does exist by the 7th century, so it can't
Yes.
be really talking about hiding information when it really exists. Okay, even
No,
though
you clearly can conceal
masses may
things.
not have had access to it, that's fine, but the codex does exist.
They didn't have the
But what the
internet,
Quran
Daniel.
talks about here is the early development of the scribal work. That's when the Quran says you fragmented the instruction given to Moses, you hid much of it, and you documented only little.
It says you make it into parchments and you disclose some of it and you conceal much of it. And
You're
it even
going off.
the sentence even like continues with and you were taught what not knew you. Who's that? Is that referring to the Jews in the past as well?
Absolutely. I mean, that
So what's the
that
point of what's the point of
address.
Muhammad
Wait a
addressing
second. Wait a
Jews
second.
if
When
they're
the
not even
Quran
the
is
people
addressing
involved?
when the Quran is addressing it, it's addressing a tradition. It's not addressing that exact Jewish Medinite Jewish people. When it's addressing Jewish people, it's addressing blanket Jewish people of all times, basically.
All right,
So
I'm gonna get to the next
the same
super
language
chat real
appears also in
quick.
the gospel, though.
Polpol 2739 sent 15 of whatever these squiggly line things are. Daniel, Muslims pray towards the Kaaba, its act of worship. Something forbidden by Yahweh. The act of worship and sacredness is the issue.
Muslims praying towards Kaaba is an act of worship. And what is the question? I'm sorry.
I don't think it was actually a question. I think this guy just wanted to make a statement. Saying
What did he say?
the act of worship and sacredness is the issue, maybe in regards to praying towards the Kaaba,
Praying towards the Kaaba.
because it's
Okay, why would
forbidden
that be?
it's forbidden by Yahweh is his claim.
No, why would that be? You basically, you're not read of the scriptures to make such claims. I think one of the Psalms does talk about the valley of Baca, which is, I think, Psalm 84. It does talk about pilgrimage to the valley of Baca, though, and
Okay.
that's one of the places that Abraham dwelled in, right? So why would that be blasphemy
Yeah. Send
when
another.
the Psalm talks about pilgrimage to that place?
You could send another super
not.
chat to be more specific if you'd like. Giant Meteor for $5. Sorry, Chris. I was skipping over you there if you wanted to say anything. You good?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Giant Meteor, another $5. Thanks for your support, Giant. Sending lots of meteors our way. The Quran does not explicitly state that the Torah is the specific set of commands given to Moses. Daniel's either wrong or intentionally lying.
To me?
Yeah, I said the Quran does not explicitly state that the Torah is the specific set of commands given to Moses.
Well, not just from the Quran, but from the point of view of the Bible and the prophets of Israel, First Temple period and even the Second Temple period, including Jesus Christ. It's very clear when they refer to Torah, they refer to the Torah of Moses as being the exact reference to the instruction of Moses, not just the Quran. And the Quran just bases off it. And even the Quran, in certain places like 393, clarifies that the other material was not the Torah of Moses.
That's not the right version.
It's pretty clear. Yeah, it's pretty clear.
Also, again, you had to go outside the Quran to try and understand this. It's quite clear the Quran is saying, no. What the Israelites, the children of Israel, were given to the prophet Moses is the Torah. Not just a part of it, not just the Ten Commandments, not just this bit, but the whole Torah. This is Orthodox Islam. Orthodox Islam would agree with me here. You have a really weird... Yeah, Orthodox Islam. Of course, Orthodox Islam. If I said to a Sunni or Shia Muslim, hey, is the Torah what was given by Allah to Moses? They would say yes. And you're like, no. It just means this particular instruction, not Genesis, just this particular bit. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, that's not found in the Quran or in Orthodox Islam anywhere.
The problem being this: the early Muslim converts outside of Hijaz were Jews or Christians to Islam. Okay, and it's completely plausible that they synthesized their ideas into early Islam, and those ideas found ground and became part of the elaborations in literature, commentaries, tafsirs, Ibn Kathir, and that's where the Salafi school of thought stems from. And the Salafis would agree the whole Bible, the whole Old Testament as Torah. One of the Muslim guys, I think he was Libiano fan, he came to my channel, he was arguing with me, the whole of the Old Testament is the Torah, and the Islamic scholars were fine with it. Maybe, if you want to get stuck in Middle Ages, you get stuck. I can't help you, God can't help you. God's instruction is pretty clear. God calls it out that the instruction that he gave to Moses is the Torah.
No. What was given to Moses? What is given to Moses?
Prophets, and clear even in the writings of Jesus himself.
You're adding to the Quran. It never says the instructions. It says the Torah. You're adding to the Quran. Sorry,
Torah basically means instruction, guys. Basically means instruction.
So the way the Jews understood it, the word Torah and what that meant, is a totally different way that the Quran author's using the word, according to you. That's insane. That's two people talking past each other, and the Quran author basically being deceptive at this point and telling people, yes, you should follow the Torah. You know, that thing that you guys have, the Torah? And then the Jews are like, oh yes, of course, we know what the Torah is. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And the Quran author's just there thinking, it's not that though. It's not that. They don't know it's not that. I won't tell them though. And then the Quran author, naughty, the Quran author then holds them accountable to the Torah, but they don't even know what the Torah is. The Quran author condemns Jews for not following the Torah and then has the nerve to say, haha, I'm not going to tell you what the Torah is. You guys have to guess.
No, no. You are basically, destroying it, rubbishing it, or butchering it. Basically, 393. You admitted, the Quran is pretty clear. It says this was before the Torah of Moses. Okay, so the Genesis account is not part of the Torah. The Quran never embraces that.
You still haven't understood the purpose. The point of that verse is to correct people who are saying that you can't have changes to the Mosaic dietary laws. Because the Quran introduces changes. Yes, camel meat's now permissible, so on and so forth. The verse is just saying there was a point before Moses, aka in the time of Jacob, where that was not the case. And if it was the case back then that you could eat much more foods, likewise now with the revealing of the Quran. That's the whole point of the verse. But you've butchered it and you're trying to read into it something totally foreign.
Okay, let me read this now here.
All right, we do have to get these last two questions answered or at least addressed and read for
Just
the
15 seconds.
chat. And then if
Just
you could
15
just
seconds here.
if you could keep it under a minute or so, that would be great.
Yeah. So in 393, the verbiage comes like this: Min qabli an tunazzalat at-Tawratu. Before Torah was revealed. Oh, this is the exact phraseology in 393. That happened, Genesis happened prior to an tunazzalat at-Tawratu, before the revelation of Torah, instruction of what Moses was given. Pretty clear. I don't have to explain anything here, right?
Mind blown.
Okay. Right. So the very last two, I believe, unless some people want to get some 3-pointers in as the buzzer's ringing. James 219 Apologetics for $2 says, if Adam was a prophet, who was his audience? Guess that either of you can answer that.
That's funny. From the Christian paradigm, we wouldn't say Adam is a prophet. He's more like the patriarch of humanity. But the Islamic story holds, from a Quranic point of view, holds Adam as a prophet.
I don't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong because Quran is a big book. I might be missing. I have not read of Adam as a prophet in the Quran. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a verse that you know of?
Not off the top of my head, but Orthodox Islam would say that he is a prophet.
I don't think so. He was a prophet in the Quran. Maybe Muslims. Muslims are fantastic storytellers.
We'll have to check that though, because there might be a verse and I'm just missing it. So it's possible that it's there.
Yeah, right. Muslims, don't get me wrong, Muslims have lots of stories that are just stories, yappings, right? So
okay. Poll 2739 sends another 6 squiggly lines. Making pilgrimage isn't the same as praying to stone. And I saw someone, I think it was Fairy Tale Life, said that was Israeli money. Let me just see real quick. Chat, can you see this? Oh man, the green screen's messing it up.
You try put it over your face.
Let's see.
That sounds weird.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That thing right there. Is that, what are those, shekels?
I have no idea.
Neither me.
That's a cool symbol, though.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen that in my life. Anyways, the question once more was, making pilgrimage isn't the same as praying to stone. Or that's not a question, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, look, nobody prays to a stone. Stones are building materials. They help build a structure, such as a place of worship. So stone, I mean, Islamic tradition does put out a story, as I said, borrowed from Isaiah, touching the coal for forgiveness of sins. That story got distilled in early Islam and sort of got attached to the cornerstone, foundation stone at the Kaaba. But those are just dribbles, stories. It's not found in the Quran, and you don't have to pay heed to that. So you can just dismiss it.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like people are saying shekels in the chat, but I don't know if they're just trolling. Oh, yep, another it's shekels comment. Anyways, the Caterpillar 789 sends £2 and doesn't say anything, just shows some support. Thanks, Caterpillar. I actually just found a swallowtail caterpillar last night on my lemon tree. Got to take them off because they love citrus leaves, but they're beautiful butterflies. So hopefully you turn into one soon. Right, I think that's it for the super chats. Appreciate you guys bearing through it. Sometimes they do get a little bit long-winded if I'm being patient and letting everybody give their answers the way they want. So you guys did great. There is a couple comments that I thought were pretty decent to read before I let you guys go. Mike7444, I'm gonna read yours without you sending any money and also saying it was my first day on the job. I'm gonna let that go. Daniel, do you believe in one part of the book and not in the other? Those who behave in this way shall reap disgrace in this world and severe punishment on the day of resurrection.
Well, you should not really do that. The verse in the Quran, 285, I think it is, is a very specific context, which, time permitting, I will talk in the future. But you should not really do that. Okay, you should identify a book as a whole, instruction, solid instruction from Almighty God, and the Quran is that book which you should treat with utmost respect. Okay, and then the Quran posits itself as muhaiminan alayh, from what has come before it, because we have writings in the Bible. Prophet Jeremiah accuses the scribes of Israel of corrupting the scriptures. The Quran takes the same position. Jesus sort of confirms it as well. Again, now from this paradigm, you have to work with the Quran as a fuller text, wholesome text, and then you have to rely on the Quran to be able to discern the corruption in the Bible. Thank you.
So I want to come back on that because I realized that you only just brought up Muhammad in your closing speech. You didn't actually bring it up in the debate at any point.
No,
So I'll address that.
before as well. I did bring it up before
No,
as
I
well.
don't think you did. The
I
first
did.
time I heard
Maybe you
you say
missed it.
Muhammad was right in your closing
Maybe you missed it.
statement.
Maybe you missed it. I
Okay,
did. I did.
we'll see, but I don't think you did. But anyway, Muhammad, you described as saying guardian, which is funny because a guardian does not try and correct or change something. That's not what it means to be a guardian. If I am a guardian over the Quran, that does not give me license to correct it. That would mean I'm some sort of changer of the Quran or some sort of destroyer or alterer of the Quran, not a guardian over it. But thank you for saying that the correct interpretation of Muhammad is guardian. But to be honest with you, this understanding just makes the Quran into a mockery, because the Quran never qualifies many things that are written in the biblical text in the Torah and the Gospel. For example, there are stories like the story of Joseph in the Genesis account. Yes, it is Genesis, but it is in the Torah, Daniel. The Quran it engages with and it retells that story, but it chooses to use contemporary Syriac versions of that story. And so the Quran here is not trying to re-reveal the original revelation given to Moses, but rather is actually just talking with contemporary Syriac Christians like Jacob of Saru or Afraha, or others who lived a few centuries prior to Islam and were Eastern Syriac bishops. So no, the Quran is not a Muhammad in the sense that it can correct things. That's a desperate last-ditch attempt to justify this kind of correction theory. Not only that, but 548 then goes on to refute it anyway, because it says that the previous scriptures are reliable to race to do all that is good, and that is in the context of legal aspects, which would mean that all of the Mosaic law is valid.
All right.
So no,
that's that. Daniel, if you want a very short response, I got
sure.
a couple more that I'll read. This one will be from the other side, so go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Look, yeah, Muhammad then is a guardian text, which is guarding the truth. Okay, that's what it is doing. It's not correcting, but you can use this text, which is guarding the truth, to identify what is true in the Bible. Not necessarily that you have to correct it. Correction is not even a premise here. Okay, and the story that you mentioned about Joseph, I would love to discuss more with you. Maybe after this debate, I want to see what you're really trying to say and how it applies to the Quran. I would be interested in having a conversation with you. Just a discussion, maybe your channel, my channel, doesn't really matter. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So USS Liberty said there is only one Quran, the original Quran, that has no vowel markings. That has never changed. There are many systems or versions of vowel markings to aid with pronunciation. Those are not new Qurans. Comment?
Sure. I mean, that's not really relevant to Islamic
let's let Daniel answer that one first.
Sure.
Since he has translated the Quran, I'm curious to his answer.
Well, the Continental Quran is the base of which vocalization has really happened. I mean, vocalization. I should be really honest and fair in this area of concern, because the Continental Quran was not used, or maybe later on was only used as a memory. Okay, but the vocalization was pretty much intact from day one of how it was vocalized in the prayers in the early Islamic community, and the vocalization just continued to be the thing of the day. And yes, of course, there did come along variations in vocalization. That's because of the dialect of the different communities that were engaging with the Quran. But however, the Quran, that's Qurayshi dialect, Qurayshi vocalization, prevails to be the thing with Hafs and Asim from around like 180 AH. So that's pretty much what is the standardized version, I think, which majority of Muslims agree as a standard text and a standard vocalization and recitation. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Chris, short response. I'm going to ask one more question before I let you guys go.
Yeah, short response. Okay, so from the Sunni tradition at least, you have the Al-Ruf, so you have the 7 different modes the Quran was revealed in. Those are not all the same. They are distinct from each other. That would mean that there are properly understood at least 7 different Qurans that were given to Muhammad. So, in that sense, it's factually wrong to say one Quran, at least from the Sunni tradition. If you go outside the Sunni tradition, well, actually, no, you can still say within it. But the Uthmanic recension produced a consonantal text with some diacritical marks, but for the most point, they're absent, which means that only the person who wrote it will know what the word means in all instances. There's ambiguity introduced by not having these diacritical marks for the most part, which has led to later imams in different regions putting their own reading into the text by assuming what the word is. Most of the time this is quite minor, but there are variances and they do change the meaning of the text in quite a few instances. So from that sense, according to the tradition of the qira'at and the readings, you'd have to say that all those go back to Muhammad, in which case you've still got multiple Qurans because the qira'at are different and they do say different things. If you're just going to say it's the consonantal text, that doesn't work because the consonantal text, you still have to add in the diacritical marks to know specifically what word is being said. You can't just not have any because then you don't know what it says. It's just that the diacritical marks help make sure you know what the word is. So, yeah, I don't think the answer given by the person who asked the question was a sufficient one.
Fair enough.
Can I give a short response, like under 15 seconds?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the tradition of preservation in Islam is what is called as huffaz. These are a community of people who memorize the Quran and recite it. So that is a tradition that goes always, all the time, all the way back to Prophet Muhammad and the early companions. So we can work with that, right? We don't even have to go to what is being written down. So thank you.
Oh, you're just baiting me now. One little reply. There are things in the Quran that are completely unknown, and this shows that the oral tradition has failed very early on. So, for example, there are 29 mysterious letters in the Quran. Scholars have no idea what they mean. They can only speculate. And also, there are entire chapters of which have names, like Surah 20, Surah Taha. No one knows what Taha means. They only speculate on its meaning.
Well, those words are not meant to be known either way. You know, it doesn't really add. These are not consequential things. These have
It's
no
just
consequences.
nonsense.
Well, we can discuss about it.
Okay. All right.
All right. Okay, guys. Last question. It's going to be a little bit more philosophical. I'll give you 2 minutes each to respond to it. Corrosive Truths asked, "What is a debate?"
This is in reference to Sheikh Uthman, who famously, not too long ago, avoided a debate with Godlogic Avery from Godlogic Apologetics after Avery went and travelled to go and speak with him after being challenged to a debate by Uthman, only for Uthman to then pretend that Godlogic wasn't there. And this was all being filmed live at the time, and he was caught on a hot mic asking his friend, "What is a debate?" To which we wonder what on earth he was referring to, even to this day.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the jab.
That's the
that he's
context, yeah.
throwing.
I
Okay.
had
got it.
not been aware of that, but it sounds like it was
Yeah,
a
okay.
funny situation, I guess.
All right. Like, there were false prophets in ancient Israel. So if there were false prophets, there's false teachers as well. During Jesus' time, there's false teachers, evil shepherds, right? Now, it continues to up until this day. There's fake preachers, fake people who want to be sheikhs, who want to be scholars. But what do these people really have? What have they produced? What works have they written down? Nothing. But these are just wannabes, right? They get a handsome pay out of the mosque, out of a church, out of a synagogue. They're happy with that. There's a difference between wannabes and real scholarship. So it's up to the crowds to identify who they are.
That's the first time I think I've agreed with you this debate, Daniel. 100%.
All right, it's good to end on some common ground there.
You got to go and contemplate on the debate and agree more with me. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate you guys for being on the channel. We're going to be back later tonight around, I believe, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. and we're going to be doing a call-in show. So if either of you two would like to call in, you're more than welcome. I got your email. Just respond to it if you'd like me to send you the Zoom link, and I'll kind of queue you up in Zoom with the other people, and then we'll kind of pull you in. We won't be doing video. It'll just be audio. Maybe if one of you guys do it, I could pop in the video since you're already trusted and you're not going to put some garbage on the screen. Got to be careful. But we're really looking for Christians who would like to ask Nadir some questions, and we're looking for Muslims who would like to ask John Steele some questions. He's got a great streaming channel where he talks about Christianity, and Nadir is a very regular guest on MDD about once a month, I would say, is what it seems like to me. And he's tenacious. So, you got to ask him some questions that you feel would be good to hear the answer to, and vice versa, because John's very good at explaining his point of view. So that will be fun. It's our first time doing that on Modern Day Debates. And my email is up on the screen there if you'd like to send it right here. I'm going to wiggle it right in the middle. pointism.info@gmail.com. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate everybody today. W's in the chat for the chat. And then we're going to go ahead and be back on later tonight. See ya.
Thank you. See you.